I owe you an explanation.
I've always loved her.
Something, anything's his sister. Because if you don't, you're gonna lose me forever.
You know what you're gonna need?
The respect of not making me listen to your explainers. I won't love a ghost for the rest of my life.
Are you gonna love a ghost?
I need to go. Just go. Jeremy.
Hey, what's up you guys, it's me Luke and welcome back to another video, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I post commentary and reaction videos on movies, TV shows, and pop culture. Today is another installment in my deep dive and recap into the plot of the Vampire Diaries. If you're unaware, I've been doing this series since the beginning of 2023, where I do a recap of the plot of the Vampire Diaries and do a deep dive into all of the relationships, mythology, characters, and plot holes. It's a lot of fun. If you want to check out the playlist down below, I've already done all of season 1 and season 2, and just last week, my season 3 part 1 video went up, which covered the first 5 episodes of the season. And today's video is chapter 2, covering episodes 6 to 9, which gets us to the mid-season finale, self-titled as Those Haunted and Those Hunted.
Blood had made us reborn.
It is a crime against nature. Ayana, we have already lost too much.
And with that, the predatory species was born.
So yeah, thank you for clicking on this video. If you're returning to this series, welcome back. Thank you so much for your constant support. And just as a reminder, guys, this video is for anyone, those of you who have watched the Vampire Diaries as a trip down memory lane, as well as those of you who have never watched it before, because we don't spoil things ahead, we spoil as they come. We go through the show episode by episode. I also include clips to make it more visual and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully I don't get copyrighted this time like I did last time. Sorry about the drama. Please go rewatch my video. I had to re-upload it. I will do a brief recap just to refresh your memories, and then I'll also explain the mind map to you guys very briefly. We've got 3 different colors of strings. We've got blue strings, which indicate familial genetic relationships. We've got green strings, which indicate vampirism bloodlines. And if we've got the red strings, that indicates relationships past, present, and future. So if the line is broken, that relationship is in the past. If the line is like fully connected, that means the characters are together in a relationship. If the line is like going from one character to the other, it means it's like a possible future relationship. In terms of our symbols, we obviously have our X's, which mean characters that have died. We've got our question marks, which are characters that are yet to be introduced. And we have a few other symbols which describe what kind of supernatural creature a character is. I've got a key over here for you to refer back to. Now, before we get into our refresh of what happened in the previous video of all of these characters with such luscious, beautiful hair, do you really think that all the male actors in the Vampire Diaries just magically avoided male pattern baldness? Male pattern baldness is a genetic condition that affects 2 out of every 3 men by the time they are 35. There are so many different ways out there that claim to prevent hair loss, but so few of them are actually proven to be not only affordable, but efficient and effective. Unlike the sponsor of today's video, Keeps, which manages to be all 3. Keeps is an online subscription service that makes it easy and more affordable for men to treat their male pattern baldness from the comfort of their own home. With Keeps, you can get clinically proven treatments to address hair loss and boost hair regrowth delivered straight to your front door in discreet packaging, without ever having to visit a doctor's office or traditional pharmacy, and their treatment plans are so affordable, on average costing half the amount of pharmacy prices. To date, Keeps has helped nearly 1 million men keep their hair and has over 5,000 5-star reviews. According to clinical studies, treatments offered by Keeps are 90% effective at preventing hair loss and can increase your hair growth by up to 35%. And most Keeps customers notice results within 6 months of starting their treatment. Keeps offers FDA-approved hair loss treatment options that are clinically proven to work, as well as a 2-in-1 gel that combines both treatments. In addition to clinically proven treatments, Keeps offers hair thickening shampoo, conditioner, and a styling pomade. And all of Keeps treatments are personalized to address your unique needs and recommended by a licensed medical professional. It's super quick and easy. All you have to do is complete an online consultation to get matched with a treatment plan tailored to address your hair loss concerns. You can find a plan that works with your schedule with the flexibility of 3, 6, or 12-month delivery options. Plus, you can adjust, pause, or cancel your plan at any time. Whether you or a man in your life is looking to prevent hair loss, stimulate new hair growth, or just take better care of their hair, Keeps has you covered, and using them can stop hair loss in its tracks. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/LukeAlexander or click the link in my description. That's keeps.com/LukeAlexander to get your special offer. Thank you so much, Keeps, for sponsoring this video, and let's get into the refresh. So basically what happened in the previous episode covering season 3, episode 1 to 5 is obviously we know Stefan had left Mystic Falls with Klaus because he was in a deal with Klaus where Klaus gave his blood to heal Damon from a werewolf bite, and in order to give him that, Stefan had to go on a bender with him and basically be his sidekick, ripping through the east coast of America. So basically what Klaus had Stefan doing was they were hunting down werewolves, because one of the main reasons Klaus broke his hybrid curse was not only to become one, but so that he could sire his own species, so he could use them as an army to fight against his enemies. So he's getting Stefan to help him find werewolves and try and turn them, but it's not working. All the werewolves that he keeps trying to turn keep dying, and he's looking for answers. So we see a lot of them doing this over in Tennessee, and then Klaus takes Stefan to Chicago to meet his favorite witch Gloria so he can get some answers from her. And in this episode we see a lot of flashbacks of Stefan's time in the 1920s. Turns out he actually knew Klaus and Klaus's sister, another original vampire, Rebecca Michelson. He was in a relationship with her, and he was besties with Klaus. He was in Chicago when he had his humanity off, so he was a ripper, he was feeding on people. Klaus compelled Stefan to forget about him and Rebecca because we see that there was a man hunting them down who came and shut up the bar they were in, and Klaus and Rebecca needed to disappear, and Klaus felt like Stefan would draw too much attention. But when they ran off, Rebecca dropped her necklace and Stefan picked it up, the same necklace he gave to Elena in season 1. Also, Rebecca didn't want to go with Klaus, she wanted to stay with Stefan, so he stuck a dagger in her which made her go to sleep, which is kind of like a way of temporarily killing an original. In present day, Klaus wakes her up because the witch Gloria needs something from her, and what she needs is the necklace. When Rebecca realizes she doesn't have it, Gloria does a spell to try and find it, and she sees that it's with Elena. She confirms this by tapping into Stefan's mind with witchy voodoo, because Stefan is trying to keep the secret that Elena's still alive from Klaus, because then he'll figure out that that's why his hybrids aren't working. So while Stefan is being tortured by Gloria, Catherine actually kills her to save Stefan and keep his secret, because Catherine had been stalking Stefan and Klaus, you know, keep your enemies closer kind of thing. And during this, Elena, Damon, and Rick are also trying to hunt Stefan down to try and find him and bring him back home, but Stefan told Elena that he didn't want to come back home, their relationship was over. So she was trying to like move on from him and stuff like that. Wasn't exactly working. And Rebecca's got really good instincts with Stefan because she was in a relationship with him, so she can kind of read when he's lying. And she tells Klaus this. So Klaus knocks Stefan out and brings him back to Mystic Falls to see what he's hiding. Klaus ends up going into the high school on senior prank night and seeing that Elena's still alive. He kidnaps Elena, keeps her hostage. He compels Stefan to feed on Elena and turn off his humanity. And he also gets Elena's best friend Bonnie to try and talk to the original witch, figure out why his hybrids aren't working on the other side. So the other side is kind of this other storyline that we've got going on over here. We've got like the original storyline of like Klaus being hunted down by someone, and then we've got the ghost storyline here. So at the end of season 2, Bonnie brought Jeremy back to life using the spirits of the dead witches, and they warned her that there would be consequences, but she did it anyway, and then she lost contact with them. And ever since then, Jeremy has been able to see ghosts, specifically his ex-girlfriends Vicky and Anna. And Vicky saying that she wants to come back, so Jeremy was trying to help Matt bring Vicky back. So what Matt ended up doing was drowning himself, getting Bonnie to bring him back to life with CPR, and now he can communicate with his ghost dead sister Vicky. Jeremy is still in communications with Anna and keeping it a secret from Bonnie. He actually did end up telling her, so now they're kind of at a standstill. And in this same episode where Klaus had like told Bonnie that she needed to speak to the original witch to save his hybrids, what he had done to incentivize her to do this, not only kidnapping Elena, but he also fed Tyler his blood and killed him, and said that if Bonnie didn't figure out a way to save his hybrids, then Tyler would die. But lo and behold, when Matt spoke to Vicky, he did get a message from the original witch that the reason that Klaus's hybrids aren't working is because Elena's still alive. She was supposed to die in the ritual. But instead of killing Elena, Klaus feels as though the original witch is lying because she never wanted him to break his hybrid curse in the first place, and her failsafe so that if he did break the curse, he wouldn't be able to make hybrids because the doppelganger would be dead and he needed her blood to feed his hybrids. So he tests this theory by giving some of Elena's blood to Tyler, ergo Tyler then turns into a hybrid who is Klaus's first successful hybrid. But our final state of affairs is the vampire hunter who hunts vampires, who is coming after Klaus and Rebecca in 1920, who Damon and Catherine ended up finding in the last episode we spoke about. They ended up finding him because Catherine had kidnapped Jeremy, who could speak to the ghost Anna, because Catherine's best friend back in 1864, who was Anna's mother Pearl, because she was the only one who knew about where Michael's body was. So Damon ends up threatening Jeremy. So Anna reveals information about where Michael's body is and tells him that they don't want to wake him. He will kill them all. And at the end of that episode, Catherine and Jeremy found Michael's body in a crypt in Charlotte, chained up and all grey, and he opened his eyes. That is the end of the refresh. And of course, if you guys ever want any more Vampire Diaries content from me, just go ahead and check out my Patreon. We do scene reaction videos and we like break down storylines and we discuss the characters and their relationships and everything. So check that out if you want more Vampire Diaries content when I'm not posting here on YouTube, because this video is coming out now a week after my last one because these chapters kind of go together because of the mid-season finale. But I will take a little bit of a break in between this video and the next one to post other videos, but then we'll come back with the last 3 chapters covering the last 14 episodes of season 3. But that all being said, without further ado, let's get into my deep dive and recap of the plot of the Vampire Diaries season 3 part 2 episodes 6 to 9, self-titled Those Haunted and Those Hunted. Alrighty guys, let's get into episode 6 of season 3 of the Vampire Diaries, titled Smells Like Teen Spirit. This was a really fun episode, so I'm excited to discuss it, and it does answer quite a few of the questions that were presented to us in season 3 episode 5, The Reckoning. So the episode begins in the Gilbert house where Elena wakes up and she covers the neck bite that she got from Stefan up with some makeup. She's looking really disheveled, but she's like, you know what, gotta get on with the day. So her and Rick go over to the forest because he is training her to become stronger so she can defend herself against the vampire. More specifically Stefan, now that his humanity is off and he's off the rails. So remember, Rick is a retired vampire hunter, so he's being quite hard on Elena, saying she needs to work harder, put meat on her bones. He chucks a Vervain grenade with the cap off in her hands, and she throws it away and it explodes, and she's like, what the hell? And he's like, you've always got to have your guard up. Never let them get you with the element of surprise. Vampires are predators, Elena. And he's obviously channeling his anger towards Damon for killing him. He's mad at his bestie, fair enough. And Elena's like, you're right, like this probably isn't gonna work. And he's like, no, Elena, you got out of bed this morning after everything that happened with Steffi. That to me shows me that you are strong. So just a classic little mini Karate Kid training montage vibe. So on a more semi-lighthearted note, it is our girls' first day of their senior year of high school. Elena, Caroline, and Bonnie walk into school feeling a little deflated because they're all going through a lot. Caroline's boyfriend just got turned into a hybrid by Klaus. Bonnie's boyfriend Jeremy is talking to his exes who are ghosts, and he lied about it to her for the whole summer. And Elena's boyfriend Stefan disappeared with Klaus for the summer and came back and was compelled to turn off his humanity and is now off the rails. And so it's really not a good vibe. Caroline's trying to keep the mood up, but Elena remembers and realizes that this is the anniversary of when she met Stefan, because they met on the first day of her junior year a year ago. So she's really not feeling too well about this, and they're like, you know, we can just skip it if you want. And she's like, no, it's okay, I gotta do this, I gotta move on. New year, new me, new life. Speaking of Stefan, he's over at the Salvatore house playing Twister with some girls that he's compelled and has been feeding on. Damon's not a fan because they're bleeding all over his expensive Persian rugs, and Stefan's like, our Persian rugs, brother, I live here too. Then all of a sudden Rebecca shows up and she's like, my brother, he just left me, he just left town without me. And she walks in with a bunch of shopping bags and she's like, okay, so which one is my room? And they're like, you're not staying here. And she's like, rude. And she's like, I'll just go find one myself. So now Rebecca's moving into the Salvatore house, which is just so random. So back at the high school, Bonnie's giving Jeremy the cold shoulder, and she says she's not mad, but she's just coming to terms with the fact that she's sharing space in their relationship with Anna and Vicky. And Jeremy's like, well, I haven't actually spoken to Vicky in a while. And Bonnie's like, is that supposed to make it better? He just says such dumb shit. This is why you shouldn't date younger guys. Just saying, girls. And Bonnie's trying to get Jeremy to understand where she's coming from, and is like, you didn't break up with Vicky or Anna. They died, and you keep letting them back in. He says he doesn't want any of this, and Bonnie's like, well, you have the power to decide whether or not you see them. Which is so true. The only reason that he can still see Anna and Vicky on occasion is because he's thinking about them and letting them in. That's the way that this mythology works. A bit rocky, but it's the way it is. So then Matt shows up to school in his truck looking all sullen and depressed because, I mean, look at the state of his life. And then Vicky's ghost shows up saying he was always better than her at this, and he gets affried because he forgot, I guess, that he could see her. I don't know. And she's like, hey, I'm a ghost. That's kind of my thing. One thing I forgot to mention when I was recapping the previous episode, but I realized while I was editing. So Jeremy can see ghosts because he died and was brought back to the life by Bonnie, but in a supernatural way. So that to me makes sense, right? But how come Matt can see ghosts just because he was brought back to life, but he was brought back to life through CPR? He wasn't brought back to life in a magical way. So does that mean that everyone on Earth in this universe can just see ghosts if they're brought back to life? To me, that's a little plot holy, a little messy, doesn't quite make sense to me. I don't know, maybe it's just because he knows someone who's supernatural, but I digress. Anyways, Matt and Vicky reminisce about their first day of school last year, and she asks if he's gonna be okay because he seems unhappy, and he says it's just a lot with her gone and with mom not around, and she tells him that there's a way for her to come back. But then they get interrupted when Tyler shows up and Vicky disappears, and he takes Matt in for school like, it's senior year, bro, it's gonna be the best year of our lives. So Tyler's in an amazing mood ever since he was turned into a hybrid. So over to Miss Katerina, Catherine is in the crypt trying to wake Michael up. She gets a call from Damon saying that she's been ignoring him, and she's like, well, Michael won't feed, okay? I've tried everything. And Damon's like, well, try again, okay? I need him to kill Klaus so that we can get Stefan back on the rails because he's destroying my house. And Catherine sees a man outside leaving flowers at someone's grave, so she's like, alrighty, I'll try again and call you back. Then Elena notices that Caroline's putting up a poster on a board for the school bonfire. So this episode is like very like similar vibes to the pilot, the first episode of season 1 where we had the back to school bonfire. And Elena says she completely forgot, and Caroline's like, come on, you have to go, it's the start of the season. And Elena's like, relax, I'm gonna go, okay? And then Tyler shows up and he's like, hey babe, and Caroline tastes something on his mouth and then notices that he has blood on his shirt. So she grabs him and goes into the bathroom, and Elena follows, and they're trying to clean the blood off of his shirt, and she's like, Vampire 101, Tyler, don't come to school wearing your breakfast. And he's like, chill, Caroline, it's just a blood bag. Rebecca hooks me up. And she's like, since when do you hang out with Rebecca? And he's like, well, you know, I'm Klaus's first successful hybrid. I'm his asset, so he told her to look out for me. And she's like, why are you acting like this is funny? Elena then leaves this awkward couple fight, and when she steps out of the men's bathroom, guess who bumps into her? But none other than Stefan. Another callback to the season 1 pilot when they first met, bumping into each other outside the men's room when Elena was yelling at Jeremy for getting stoned. I digress. Except this time, obviously, Stefan's a ripper douche, and Elena asks what he's doing there and reminds her that Klaus has instructed him to keep watch of her, considering she's a doppelganger and he needs her to make more hybrids. Elena tries to leave and Stefan grabs her and is like, believe me, I do not want to be a senior in high school for the 100th time, Elena, but I don't exactly have a choice in the matter. Rick then shows up to try and break the situation up, but Stefan slams Rick up against the lockers, and all the students stare because it's a student slamming a teacher up against the lockers. That's weird, right? So before Rick is about to start his history class, Elena is in there telling him how they need to do something about the situation because Stefan is completely out of control. The rest of the class will come in, and then Stefan's acting like a douche to some student, like, yo, that's my seat. And he sits down in it because he's next to Elena. Then Rick starts the lesson about Native Americans, and then Rebecca comes in saying she'd much rather learn about the Vikings. And Rick's like, who are you? And she's like, I'm the new girl, and my favorite subject is history. So Rebecca's here to mess-ish up, and you know how much I love Rebecca. She's so funny. So Mr. Betty Blue Eyes is wandering over in the stoner pit looking very confused, and Vicky shows up being like, you have no business being here. And he's like, well, I thought I would find you here. And they continue their conversation about what she said earlier about being able to come back from this elusive other side. But they get interrupted when Jeremy shows up, and Matt's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I'm just looking for my stoner lab partner. Well, he's not here. Alrighty, see you later. And he shows no indication of being able to see Vicky, and Matt's like, can you not see him anymore? And she's like, I don't know. And then we go over to Jeremy in the bathroom talking to Anna. So these two scenes of Jeremy with Anna and Matt with Vicky kind of like intercut. So Jeremy tells Anna how Vicky says she has help from the other side, and she's like, what kind of help? Back in the stoner pit, Vicky tells Matt that there's a witch on the other side who says that there's a ritual where she can use magic from her side to push Vicky over to his side. Back to Jeremy, he asks Anna if it's possible for Vicky to come back, and she says maybe if she had a stronger foothold, because right now Anna's only foothold to this side is Jeremy. And then back in the stoner pit, Vicky tells Matt that she could come and go as she pleases and not have to rely on him, and Matt's like, yeah, but you'd be a ghost. And she's like, in a town with vampires, witches, and werewolves, I'd fit right in. And Matt's really not buying this, and Vicky's like, relax, Maddie, no one would actually be able to see me. So what difference does it make? You can just show up and touch stuff. Like, people still can't see you. You're still kind of a ghost. Anyway, back to Anna. She tells Jeremy that Vicky is bad news, and there's like a darkness around her that she feels. And Jeremy's being really naive, saying that Vicky is not a bad person. And Anna tells him, you can't upset the balance of nature, not without a price, and you don't know what Vicky's agreed to pay. So then back to Vicky. She's really tugging on Matt's heartstrings, and she's crying, say that if she helps him, neither of them have to be alone anymore. So Matt's in, and he's like, what do you need me to do? Which, are we surprised? Because as a human, there was a little bit of darkness around her, wasn't there? So over in the Mystic Falls High football field, the football boys are training while the cheerleaders are stretching, and one of the girls asks if anyone's seen Dana, which we know is the girl that Klaus compelled Stefan to kill in the last episode, so she's not coming back. Rebecca then shows up saying, oh, it looks like there's an opening in the squad, and Caroline is not happy about this, telling Rebecca that she can't just infiltrate all of their lives, and Rebecca's like, I'm not interested in everyone's lives, just yours, your popularity, your spunk, your boyfriend. And then we cut to Tyler and all the football boys who are getting really ridden hard by the coach, who's like, keep going, guys. And Tyler compels the coach, like, why don't you let us go so we can go to the bonfire and get drunk? So he's like, all right, wrap it up, boys. So then Caroline goes over to Tyler and is like, I saw that, okay? You can't just compel people to get what you want. And Tyler's like, relax, Caroline, I have everything under control. And she's like, why are you acting this way? And he's like, because Klaus has given me a gift. They then get distracted when Rebecca's showing off to the other cheerleaders doing lots of backflips and stuff. And Tyler's like, damn, girls got moves. So Caroline's feeling threatened. So over on the track field, Elena is running when Stefan shows up to her asking if she's going to go to the bonfire, you know, and she tells him to just leave her alone. And then she turns around to go in another direction, and a guy bumps into Elena and he's apologizing, and she's like, oh, it's okay. And Stefan like body slams him and he falls, and he's like, watch it, dick. And Elena's like, who are you, Stefan? And he's like, I'm the guy who's been compelled to look after a human blood bag. And she looks really offended because, I mean, that's rude. But at the same time, douchey Stefan in this episode to me is so funny. It's so funny seeing him play this like douchey character because he's normally so noble and kind. So back over in that graveyard crypt, Catherine has gotten Michael to wake up by leaning over that human we saw before with his gaping neck and the blood's dripping into his mouth. And when Michael wakes, he tells Catherine to get the guy away from him. And Catherine says she remembers Michael from Chicago in the 1920s when he was looking for Klaus. And she looks at him all chained up, grey, veiny, and frail, and is like, you don't look too scary for a vampire hunter. So Damon shows up to Rick's apartment where Elena is working out, doing some bench presses, and she tells him about her day and how Stefan's acting like a completely different person now. And he asks what her plan is, and she says she wants to lock Stefan up at least until Michael can come over and kill Klaus so that they can get Stefan to turn his humanity back on once the compulsion wears off. Damon doesn't think this is a good idea because Stefan's high off of human blood. Elena's being naive, saying they've gotten him off it before, and Damon's like, yeah, this is different though, his humanity is off, it's not just like a little stint in rehab. And Elena asks if Damon will do it for her because every time she looks at Stefan, she feels like she's just gonna break. It's really sad, but then Damon grabs Elena like against his body. It's a little sexy, and he takes his hand to her chest, drags it down under her ribcage, and says, that's the way you get to a vampire's heart, and whispers in her ear, I'll do whatever you need me to do, Elena. The sexual tension, it's brewing. So it's nighttime now over at the Mystic Falls High School bonfire back to school party. All the teenagers are getting drunk, and inside of Rick's classroom, because we all know how much he likes to hang around drunk high school students, he is going over the plan with Elena and Damon and Caroline on how they're going to distract and trap Stefan. So Elena's job is to lure Stefan away from the bonfire so that Rick can shoot him up with revenge. chain and they can lock him up. Caroline's job is making sure that the Forbes dungeon where she was locked up by her father is available to lock Stefan up in. And Damon's job is to keep Rebecca distracted with his flirty charm. Then Tyler shows up asking what's going on, and Elena says that she wants him to raid his mom's vervain stash so that they could use it on Stefan. And Tyler's like, I don't think Klaus would like that. And Caroline's like, are you forgetting that Klaus is the bad guy here? She's getting increasingly pissed off at this point with Tyler's attitude towards Klaus, and Tyler's going on about how Klaus broke him free from his curse and he owes him everything. Damon goes over to Tyler and snaps his neck, and Caroline's like, what the hell? And Damon's like, oh honey, your boyfriend's been sired. It means that he's indebted to Klaus because he broke him free from training every month. It's very rare, but he'll do anything that his master asks of him. So this is where we introduce another lore, another mythology into the series, the sire bond, which kind of goes over season 3 and 4, which is another thing that I'm not much of a fan of, but we'll save that for a later stage. Sometimes when things are just like a little bit too obscure and repetitive and seem a bit too easy to fit into a plot, it just doesn't work for me, and the sire bond is one of those things. Caroline wonders how they can fix this, and Damon's like, oh, just get a new boyfriend. Over at the bonfire, Rebecca is getting a drink from the keg when Stefan shows up wondering what she's doing there, and she's saying that she was hoping Tyler would come, and he's like, oh, you're into Tyler now. Seems a bit cliche. And she's like, when you start treating me right and giving me the time of day, then we'll talk. But for now, a girl has needs. Elena then shows up and pours herself a drink and chugs it, and Stefan's like, watch it, Elena, we both know you're a lightweight. And she's like, really, Stefan? You think I'm gonna take drinking advice from a bloodaholic? That's funny. Over at Matt's house, he has a circle of candles with a picture of him and Vicky in it, and she's standing behind him, guiding him through this, and he cuts his palm and lets his blood dribble onto the photo. He says that he accepts her, and then the flames rise up and the photo frame burns. We actually see in the background that this ominous shadow shows up, flies through the door and slams it. He stumbles back into Vicky, and they're both shocked because they can actually feel each other now. They've made contact. They rejoice and hug, and it's really cute, but also dark, because what was that shadow? So over in the high school hallways, Jeremy is telling Bonnie about what Anna said to him about Vicky, and she's really annoyed that Jeremy's still talking to Anna, and he goes on telling her about how Vicky's communicating with a witch, and Bonnie's like, if you think there's another witch involved, don't you think you should have come to me? Then Anna tells Jeremy to tell Bonnie not to get mad, she's just trying to help, and Jeremy's like, not now, Anna, and Bonnie's like, she's here? And Jeremy's like, she's just trying to help, and Bonnie's like, I can't do this. And as Bonnie walks away, she says, Matt's trying to resurrect his sister from the dead. I think I'll go deal with that first. Jeremy, you need to pack it up. Like, what do you say to her? Like, he's so dumb. So back at Matt's house, he's asking Vicky if the witch didn't mention this part about her being able to make contact with this side of the world, and she says it makes sense considering what she needs to do, and he's really confused by this, and she says that if she needs to stay here, she needs to help the witch restore the balance because Klaus's hybrids can't be allowed to live. And Matt's like, no, Vicky, you can't kill Tyler. And Vicky's like, not Tyler, Maddie, Elena. She's the reason Klaus is able to make hybrids. She goes to leave and Matt tries to stop her, but she hits him over the head with a wrench and he passes out. So this is the original witch on the other side who put the curse on Klaus, who's now trying to use Vicky to kill Elena. We're all caught up to speed, okay? So back at the bonfire, Elena is drinking, pretending to have fun. She's looking over some people like, chug, chug. Stefan like looks over at her eyes. They kind of like IF, you know? And then we see Damon go over to Rebecca, who's roasting a marshmallow on a stick. Like, I just don't know how to do this. It keeps burning. And Damon's being all flirty, like, you gotta look what's on the inside. And he peels off the burnt crust and feeds the marshmallow to Rebecca. Elena's watching Damon and Rebecca from afar, and Stefan goes up behind her, asking if she's jealous, and he keeps going on about it, and she insists that she's not jealous, gets pissed off and leaves. Then we see Miss Vicky Donovan now at the bonfire. Some guy leaves his joint on the car, and she picks it up and goes puff puff pass. So back with Rebecca, she's not buying Damon's charm and him flirting with her, and asks why he's distracting her. He continues to play dumb, so Rebecca stabs him in the gut with a stick she was using to roast her marshmallow. So Tyler wakes up in his house where Caroline is, and she's really pissed off, telling him that the problem is that he's now been sired to Klaus. He's his master and he will do whatever he says. And Tyler's like, whoa, Caroline, I'm not anyone's bitch. And she's like, well, I don't know what other reason you'd be acting like this. And he's like what? And she's like the old Tyler, the douchebag, the guy that I would never be friends with. And he's like, okay, I hate that guy. I would never want to be him again. And Caroline reminds him that now that he's a vampire, everything about his personality is heightened, so he just needs to be careful. And he promises that he will, and says that everything he likes about himself is Caroline, which is cute, but also makes no sense. I digress. They make out and all is good for now. So Stefan finds Elena drunk on top of the bleachers and says that she needs to go home. And she's like, oh, I thought Stefan the Ripper was supposed to be the life of the party. He says that he's gonna drive her home, but she climbs over the railing so she could fall now, and she's like being like, ooh, no hands. And Stefan's like, don't be silly. And she's like, ooh, Klaus would not be happy with you if I fell. And then she actually does fall, but Stefan vamp speeds over to her and catches her, and she says that she knew that he would catch her. At this point, it's kind of clear that Elena's been exaggerating how wasted she is, and then Stefan Stefan passes out because Rick had shown up and shot him in the back with a couple of Ravane darts. So the plan worked, but as Elena and Rick are loading Stefan up into Rick's car, we see that Vicky is watching them while still smoking her joint. Over in one of the classrooms, Matt is freaking out to Bonnie and she's like, you need to tell me exactly what you did to let Vicky out so I know how to send her back. But back outside, we see that Vicky has poured a trail of gasoline all the way from her leading over to Rick's car. At this point, Stefan is in the car and Elena gets in the car and Vicky drops her joint into the gasoline. It sends a trail of fire over to the car and lights it on fire. Ooh. Elena's freaking out and Rick's outside trying to open the door to get her out, but he can't open it. And Vicky's inside. Obviously, Elena can't see her. And she's like, I'm sorry, Elena. Elena wakes up Stefan, who kicks open the door. Vicky freaks out like, no, and is grabbing Elena's foot to try and stop her from escaping from the car. But then Vicky gets teleported into the classroom where Bonnie's performing the spell and she sees Matt asking what's happening. And he's like, I'm sorry, Vicky, I can't let you hurt anyone else. And she's like, no, Maddie, I promise I won't do it again. I want to stay. I don't want to be alone. And she's freaking out and crying and it's really emotional. So Matt says goodbye, closes his eyes, and Vicky disappears. So I already have an X on her, so I won't put one again, but yeah, she's officially gone now. Back at the parking lot by the car, Elena has gotten out and Rick tells her to leave before the car blows up, but Stefan has passed out again from the Ravane, and she said she's not going to leave him, so Rick and Elena grab Stefan, pull him out of the car, and they all run away, and the car explodes. Ooh, that was intense. So over at the Salvador house, Damon is applying some first aid to Elena's injury, and she mentions how he played his part of the plan really well. He had Rebecca drooling all over him and his marshmallows. He mentions how he thought she was too drunk to notice, but she says that she was faking most of it, and they look into each other's eyes, have a bit of a moment, but they get interrupted by Rick, who wants to take Elena home. So back at the Lockwood mansion, Caroline and Tyler are getting dressed after their fortification, and he's like, you know, you're always running out on me, and she's like, you have to earn the overnighter. They kiss, say goodbye, and Caroline leaves, but then Rebecca shows up because she's brought him a gift, and we see that it is a human girl who Rebecca has bitten into the neck of, and she's dripping blood. Tyler's like, go away, and Rebecca's like, I'm sure my brother would want his hybrid to indulge in all of his natural urges. So then Tyler can't help himself, vamp speeds over to the human and feeds on her. But so much for your promises, Tyler, to Caroline, of being careful. So back in the crypt that vampire who hunts vampires, Michael wakes up. Catherine breaks him free of his chains and tells him that a little blood would grease those muscles right up, just saying. And Michael says that he doesn't feed on living things. So Catherine's like, well, what do you eat then? Michael then grabs Catherine by the neck, pins her down, and feeds on her until she passes out. So Michael, the vampire who hunts vampires, feeds on other vampires. Ooh, bit of a cannibalism moment in there. So back at the Salvador house, Elena and Rick go to leave and Stefan stops them, asking why Elena didn't just leave him there to die. And she says it's because she still has hope. And he's like, really? After everything I've done, you still think I can find my humanity again? And Elena's like, yeah, because I know you better than anyone, Stefan, and I'm not giving up. He then turns on her and says to Elena, do you have any idea how pathetic that makes you? She then punches Stefan in the gut, and we see that she had this contraption on her wrist that staked him. And she's like, no, Stefan, it makes me strong. She throws off the contraption and walks out with Rick as Stefan's grunting in pain. That's what you get. So over at the Gilbert house, Jeremy is leaving Bonnie a voicemail saying that she can't avoid him forever and they should talk about this. But when he gets off the phone, Anna is there and he's like, you shouldn't be here. And Anna's like, well, I'm only here because you're thinking of me. And why are you thinking of me when you're on the phone to Bonnie? And Jeremy says he doesn't know. He just can't stop thinking about Anna. And she says she can't stop thinking about him either. She goes to do the Phantom Jane Tarzan hand touch thing again with him and is like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that. I know you can't feel me. And he's like, no, wait, do it again. And they can feel each other's hands. They both freak out, so happy that they can feel each other again, wondering how this is even happening. And it's cute, but let's not forget that Jeremy is now on track to cheating on Bonnie, which is not okay. So our final scene for this episode is Damon back at the Salvador house pouring himself a drink when we hear a bunch of whooshing and someone breaks a lamp. Damon's like, oh, real funny, Stefan. But then he gets kicked and goes flying, and he still thinks it's Stefan, but we see that the person who kicked Damon and is causing a ruckus is not Stefan, but is in fact Mason Lockwood, the werewolf that Damon killed in season 2. What's going on now? Well, let's figure it out in the next episode. Episode 7, titled Ghost World. So the episode begins in the Salvador house with Damon tied to a chair with chains with pokers stabbed into him, just like how Mason Lockwood died in season 2. And Mason's watching over Damon, taunting him, but Damon can't see him yet. Stefan then shows up laughing, and Damon's like, seriously, Stefan, this isn't funny. And he's like, I didn't do this. And he's like, well, can you help me out here? So Stefan just pulls the pokers out of Damon, laughs, and leaves. So Damon's still stuck in the chair. Damon then notices that his daylight ring is off of his finger and on the floor, and Mason's like, oh, this is gonna be fun. Opens up the curtains, and Damon's skin starts burning in the sun and sizzling. So over at the Mystic Falls town square, there is another town event going on. Carol Lockwood is on the podium talking about how tonight is the night of illumination, where they release lanterns into the skies for those past. It's a tradition that's been passed down from founders, blah, 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 who cares? We then see Rick there, who asks Jeremy why they're there, and Rick's like, cause I'm on the history board. Elena then shows up to her little family and asks what she missed. Anna the ghost is next to Jeremy saying, oh, just a bunch of historical lies. He chuckles and Elena's like, oh, what's going on? And he's like, oh, nothing, and plays it off, but we see that he and Anna are holding hands. Back to Jeremy's actual girlfriend, Bonnie is hanging up lanterns with with Caroline, who asks Bonnie why she can't just use the spell that she used to get rid of Vicky to get rid of Anna. And Bonnie says that all that spell did was get rid of Vicky's physical foothold, but as long as Anna has a tie to Jeremy, she can show up whenever she wants to and they can see each other. It's really sad because Bonnie went against the balance of nature just to save Jeremy's life, and now she's dealing with the consequences. But this one's on Jeremy, not you, Bonnie. So then Damon shows up in his blue convertible and he's talking to Bonnie, saying that her spell that she used to get rid of Vicky Donovan didn't go to plan because he's pretty sure he got spit roasted by Mason Lockwood that morning. Bonnie's really shocked about other ghosts now having a physical foothold onto this side, and Damon's like, well, do something about it, Bonnie, because when I kill someone, they're supposed to stay dead. And he just drives off. As he does, we see that Matt was hanging up some lanterns across the street and eavesdropping, so Bonnie and Caroline go over to talk to him to make sure that he hasn't still been talking to Vicky, because if he's still letting her in, then she could still have a foothold, but he confirms that he hasn't seen Vicky since Bonnie did her spell. So Bonnie's like, well, if other ghosts besides Vicky have a physical foothold, then something seriously has gone wrong. And Bonnie doesn't know what to do about this, but then she drops her grimoire and it magically flips to a certain page where there is a manifesto spell used to reveal veiled matters, aka ghosts. Now this is obviously really intense when you think about all the supernatural creatures that have been killed over the past 2 seasons in the show that can want to haunt our characters, especially Damon. So Elena's sitting at the grill with Jeremy and Rick with Stefan's journals, talking about how she wants Jeremy to talk to Stefan's ex-bestie Lexi. Remember his bestie who came and visited him in season 1 that Damon killed to use to cover up his tracks with the council. And also Lexi has been Stefan's bestie for a century, and she was always there for him when his bloodaholic binge came back on, when he relapsed, for lack of better words. She would help get him back on track. So Elena wants to use Jeremy to contact Lexi so she can help her get Stefan to turn his humanity back on, because obviously Jeremy can talk to dead people. I see dead people. But Jeremy's like, that's not exactly how it works. I've never even met Lexi before. The only reason I can see Anna is because we have that connection. And Rick's really not a fan of this whole situation and tells Elena to drop it, because do they really need every supernatural ghost in their past to come back and haunt them? Anna then shows up and she's talking to Jeremy, saying that she doesn't think that every supernatural being is on the other side. She thinks some of them find peace. Elena notices Jeremy looking off to the side and asks if Anna is there, but Anna tells Jeremy not to tell her because it'll just make her mad. So he lies and says that she isn't, and he's gonna go inside to check on his work schedule. Stefan then shows up, grabs his journals from Elena, starts flipping through them, and says he forgot how much she used to care. But Elena says that she didn't, and he tells her it's best not to torture herself with memories of the past, and they should both just move on. Rick tells Stefan that he doesn't need to be here, and he says he does because he has to look out for Elena. And besides, with the Founders event going on, there's gonna be a lot of people around tonight, which means there's gonna be a lot to eat. He's kind of funny. It's just nice to see him smile. What can I say? I'm a Stephanie guy myself. So Bonnie goes with Caroline to the creepy abandoned witch house where the massacre happened, because she's gonna perform the spell in her grimoire to try and unveil all of the supernatural ghosts. Gets intercut with a bunch of other scenes. Just know that this is like kind of all happening simultaneously. So first of all, we see that Jeremy takes Anna with him into the bathroom at the grill and asks why she told him to lie to Elena. And she says it's because Bonnie is Elena's best friend, so she wouldn't like what's going on between them. And Jeremy's like, what is going on between us? He asks how they can touch because Vicky had to use magic to be able to have a physical foothold. And he sort of accuses Anna and asks her if she's working with the same witch that Vicky was, and she promises that she's not. She's all alone here on the other side. She swears that she's not a danger to Jeremy or anyone, and he says that he shouldn't even be talking to her, and she says she's only here because he wants to see her as much as she wants to see him. So if he doesn't want her there, he should just make her go away to stop thinking about her. But he says he can't stop thinking about her, and he grabs her and starts kissing her. So now you've done it, Jeremy. You've officially cheated on Bonnie. Idiot. So in the main part of the grill, Rick is looking for Jeremy, and Elena says she's just gonna go to the bathroom. Then we see that Damon goes up to Rick, asking him to have a drink with him, but Rick is still pissed at him for killing him. Rightfully so, but I mean, you did get over it before. But Damon tells him, remember back when they were friends and they conspired to kill Mason Lockwood together? Well, he's back, and he's still pissed at them. Back in the abandoned witch house, Caroline is starting to freak out because Bonnie's spell is getting really intense. Like, the wind is blowing everywhere, the flames on the candles and the fire is soaring, and then the ghost of Bonnie's Grams, her Grams who died in season 1 trying to open up the tomb, shows up and grabs Bonnie's hand, and the spell stops, and Bonnie and Caroline can both see Sheila Bennett. This is Bonnie's first time seeing her Grams since she died, so it's a really intense emotional moment for her because, you know, we saw in season 1 how much of a toll Bonnie's Grams death took on her. Back with Elena, she goes into the bathroom in the grill where she catches Jeremy and Anna making out. Awkward. And they're shocked that she can actually see Anna now. Stefan's walking outside the grill where he sees the reflection of his bestie Lexi in a car window. He turns around and she's there, like, hi bestie. At the bar inside the grill, Damon and Rick are having a drink when a guy shows up asking for one, and they turn their heads to see that it's Mason Lockwood. So now we've got Mason, Anna, Grams, and Lexi, all the ghosts of season 1's and 2's past is coming back to haunt our characters. So it's really fun seeing them all pop up, which obviously is because of the spell that Bonnie did to unveil the ghosts. And now that everyone can see the ghosts, let's get into this mess. So outside, Stefan's obviously shocked to see Lexi, saying she's supposed to be dead, and she's like, yeah, and I don't know how I'm here or how long it's gonna last, so let's just get right to the point. You're completely off the rails, Stefan. But she's like, no matter, because I'm gonna help you out of this mess. He rejects wanting her help, tries to resist, so she just smashes his head against a car window and he passes out. I mean, tough love, right? Gotta love an old friendly reunion, huh? Back at the witch house, Bonnie's really emotional seeing her Grams, and her Grams tells her they don't have time for tears because she's got herself into quite a mess by ignoring the witch's consequences when she brought Jeremy back to life. And Bonnie's like, I'm sorry, Grams, but I had to. I love him. And she says she understands, but when she did that, she cracked open a door to the other side, and there's an old witch here who took advantage of it. And when Bonnie did that spell to send Vicky Donovan away, that old witch wedged the door right open, sending a free pass to anyone with unfinished business from the other side to come through. Ooh, it's getting messy, guys. It's getting quite messy. I can't wait till we get into who this witch is. Anyway, Bonnie asks her Grams how she knows this, and she says witches talk even on the other side. Who do you think makes all the rules? Bonnie asks what the witch wants, and her Grams says it's original vampire business. Remember this. And she tells her she doesn't want Bonnie to get into the middle of it, foreshadowing. Grams then says that she's here to help Bonnie close the door and reset the balance of nature. So I find this really interesting. Like, even when witches die in this universe, they kind of still live on because they're on the other side. They're spirits that still interact with the witches in the living and are still creating rules and still, you know, having a power at play. So this really heightens the stakes of witches within the series. And when we get further into the Vampire Diaries and the originals, you'll soon come to realize that everything in this universe is tied together by the witches' hands. The vampires, the werewolves, it all originates from witches, and they are the true powers at play. Anyway, so Caroline's on the phone with Elena, telling her about this witch on the other side who's drawing power to the side because of her talisman, which is Elena's necklace, so Bonnie needs to destroy it. Elena's actually okay with this because she just caught Jeremy making out with Anna. Caroline's like, what? And Elena's like, okay, we'll deal with this, but I'm just gonna go get the necklace from Damon because he's currently the one in possession of it. Anyway, so Elena hangs up the phone and tells Anna that she needs to disappear, or whatever it is you ghosts do, and Jeremy tells Elena that it's not Anna's fault, and Elena's like, you're right, Jeremy, it's yours. Anna then disappears. Jeremy asks Elena not to tell Bonnie about Anna, and Elena says she won't. She'll let him do that right after Bonnie sends all the ghosts away. When Elena walks out of the bathroom, Lexi bumps into her, saying it was a good day for her to be thinking about her, and she grabs her arm to take her somewhere, and Elena kind of stops, and Lexi's like, I'm sorry, did you not just mention how desperate you were for me to help you save Stefan's life? So Elena like thinks about it for a moment and then just goes with Lexi to Stefan. So over at the bar with Damon and Rick, Damon's reading out a text from Elena, and he's like, I'm never gonna hear the end of that damn necklace. And then Mason gets another drink and is like, you can get this for me, right? Damon tells Mason that if he's here for revenge, he better just get on with it. And Mason says he's not there for that. He just wants an apology. Rick bursts out laughing because we all know how bad Damon is at giving apologies. And Damon deflects to Mason and is like, don't you have other family members to haunt, like your hybrid nephew? And Mason says that's why he's here, to help Tyler. Damon says he can't be helped because he's one of Klaus's minions, and Mason says he knows of a weapon that can be used to kill Klaus, which would then free Tyler of his sire bond. But he's not going to tell Damon until he apologizes. So Damon's trying to muster up an apology, and Rick's like, really? Are you that incapable of just saying sorry? So all Damon can mutter up to Mason is, I didn't have to kill you. Sometimes I do things I don't have to do. And Mason just laughs and is like, alrighty, that's good enough. Meet me in an hour with a shovel at the old Lockwood cellars. Okay, what's gonna go on down there, huh? Anyway, so Lexi has taken Elena into the old form cell where Caroline was tortured, and we see that Stefan is chained to a chair, passed out. So Lexi says she can help Elena get Stefan to turn his humanity back on, but it's not gonna be pretty, so she needs to make sure she can handle it. So Lexi wakes Stefan up and starts getting inside of his head. So this is a vampire ability we've touched on a little bit in the past 2 seasons. They have the ability to like get into people's heads, humans as well, vampires alike, to manipulate their thoughts and all that kind of stuff. I mean, a vampire can push them out, but they'd have to fight. And he's really weak right now, what with, you know, the chains and the Rivain and all that. So as Lexi's in Stefan's head, she's saying that the first step is to dry him out, draw out the bloodlust and strip away the temptation. She uses her vamp powers to get into his head, and it works because Stefan starts feeling like he's starving, and we see that he's desiccating from the inside out. His skin is starting to go gray. It's pretty cool that she can do this with her mind, actually, and she's got plenty of practice bringing Stefan off the deep end. So Mason shows up to the Lockwood cellar with a shovel, and Mason's there, and he asks what they're looking for. So Mason starts breaking down a brick wall and says that there's an old Lockwood legend about a weapon that can kill an original vampire that's buried behind these walls. Damon uses his vamp strength to break through it, and they start walking through a tunnel of caves. I love a little good cave spelunking. Spelunking? I don't know, when you explore caves. Anyway, back to Stefan. He's begging Elena to let him out, and Elena asks Lexi what's happening, and she says that he's hallucinating, and she starts listing out the months and years that she's making his mind think he's been without blood. It starts off with like 6 months, and then it jumps all the way to 5 years, which this is so interesting. I've never seen them do this before, and I don't think it ever gets done again, where you desiccate a vampire with your mind instead of powers. And it makes me wonder why it wasn't done again. But like I said, Lexi's got a lot of practice with this. A lot of practice with Stefan specifically, so she probably knows how to get into his head. But this is one of the vampire powers powers of like getting into their head, into their mind and manipulating it that I've never fully quite got a good grasp on. It just seems like there's not enough rules or ways of telling us how it actually works, but I digress. Anyway, Stefan's like to Lexi, have I ever told you how glad I am that you're dead? And she's like, oh, it's nice to see you too, Fred. So she is not bothered by him being mean because she knows where it's coming from. Elena then gets a call from Caroline, who's in the Salvatore house with Bonnie digging through Damon's room, but they can't find the necklace anywhere and it's not where Damon said. Elena asks Caroline if she can get Bonnie to hold off on sending the ghost back because she has Lexi here who's helping Stefan turn his humanity back on. Caroline tells Elena that they're just going to find the necklace first and then they can choose which boyfriend ghost dramas they'll deal with first. When she hangs up, Bonnie's like, what do you mean? You said dramas as in plural. What's the other drama? And then Caroline has to tell Bonnie about how Elena caught Jeremy making out with Anna. Oh, so sad. But she needs to know the truth. And at this point, are we sure that Jeremy was ever going to tell her? So Jeremy's in the town square looking for Anna and he bumps into a guy he doesn't recognize and he apologizes and keeps walking. But that guy is a guy that we recognize and it is Frederick. I don't know if you can see his little picture down there, but he is one of the tomb vampires from season 1, kind of the maid head honcho who got out and kidnapped Stefan and tortured him, and he wanted to get revenge on the Salvatore brothers and all that kind of stuff. So he is back, but obviously Jeremy never actually saw him. So now the tomb vampires from season 1 are back because of the ghosts all being able to come through. So this is what I meant about all these tiebacks to season 1 and 2. It's so cool. I really love this episode. Frederick goes up to Anna and is like, well, if it isn't Pearl's daughter. While this is happening, we see Carol getting up on the podium and they can't find Tobias Fell, who was like one of the founding families who was going to give a speech because he's in the history department. So instead they get Rick to come and give a speech about the whole history of the founders with the lanterns and the lights. I don't know, guys. I've told you I can't keep up with these events. Down in the crowd, Jeremy finds Anna, who's with Frederick, and he's like, well, I see you're still hanging out with the Gilberts, even though they're the reason your mother died, because remember, Pearl was killed by John Gilbert, and she was put in the tomb by the original Jonathan Gilbert back in 1864. Anna asks Frederick what he's even doing here, and then a bunch of guys show up behind him, other tomb vampires, and he's like, well, this is a founders party, and we have unfinished business with the founders. We then hear a scream, and everybody turns, and we see the light flashing on this tree, where that guy Tobias Fell has been hung from the tree, and he's bleeding from all over his body, so the tomb vampires killed him to send a message to the other founding families that they're coming after them yet again, like how they did back in the season 1 finale. Oh, the tieback, it's so good. So Stefan's continuing to grovel to Elena, saying he'll change, he'll do anything, just make it stop. And Lexi tells Elena that he's lying and she needs to separate herself from her emotions and not let him pry on them. Stefan's like, please, I'll do anything, Elena, I love you. And she's like, I'm sorry, Stefan, I don't believe you. He then turns on her and gets all mad, saying he wish he never met her because every moment he spent with her has been a total waste. And Lexi's like, there it is, that's the Ripper talking. And once he's weak enough, you have to make him feel things, pain, rage, anything, so we can get past the bloodlust. Lexi then starts stabbing Stefan as she talks and says to keep doing it until he feels so much he's ready to be saved. But Elena just can't watch and handle this anymore, so she leaves and she goes upstairs outside and notices that there are a bunch of police and paramedics all over the place in the town square. So Caroline and Bonnie are still ransacking Damon's room looking for the necklace. She even looks in the soap dish where Damon hit the moonstone back in season 2, so love that callback. And then Bonnie's phone starts ringing and it's Jeremy. She ignores it, so Caroline picks up the phone. Jeremy updates her on how the tomb vampires are coming after the founding family, so they better find that necklace. Caroline suggests someone might have taken it. Can you guess who? Jeremy looks back at Anna and she says that she didn't take it. Jeremy relays this and Caroline questions why Jeremy believes her, and she tells him that he's an even bigger idiot than she thought, so he better wake up before he loses everything. And she hangs up and Bonnie just looks at her like, what? I mean, yeah, girl, defend your friend. Well, yes. But when Jeremy gets off the phone, he turns around to see that Anna is no longer there, and Elena goes up to Jeremy and asks where Anna is because she's the only one who heard them talking about the necklace, so she must be the one who has it. Jeremy's just so not convinced, and Elena can kind of sense that he doesn't want to close the door to the other side anymore, and he's like, Elena, I can touch Anna, I can kiss her, and he says that he still loves her and he always has, but Elena tells Jeremy that it's not real. She's dead. Everything he's holding on to is in the past, and he can't spend the rest of his life in love with a ghost. Then Anna shows up crying, and Elena tells her, it's the beginning of his life, Anna. You're just holding him back, and you know that. Anna then pulls out the necklace from her pocket, and Elena's like, and she tells Jeremy to call Bonnie and get her to send the ghosts away. So Damon's still walking through the caves on Mason, having some banter because he thinks he's leading him into a trap, and he's kind of right, because when he walks further, he sets off a trap where a bunch of stakes stab through his body diagonally, so he's stuck. And when he tries to pull out the wooden stakes, he can't because they're steeped in vervain. And Mason had disappeared, but he eventually comes back with a shovel to break the wood pieces so he can pull them out of Damon, because he's not actually the one who set up the trap, it was just already there, because the old Lockwood ancestors clearly didn't want vampires sneaking around in their caves. Damon questions why Mason's even helping him after he killed him, and Mason tells him about how lonely it is on the other side. You're just watching the people you've left behind mind regretting your decisions. And he says he can't change what happened to him, but maybe he can change what happens to Tyler. And all this talk about how much he cares about Tyler, why didn't he go visit Tyler? Why didn't we get a Mason and Tyler reunion? Doesn't quite make sense. Anyways, he tells Damon that he doesn't need revenge, he needs redemption, and they keep walking. Nice. So Bonnie and Caroline are driving back to town so they can get the necklace from Jeremy, but they notice a car crash on the side of the road, and Caroline realizes that that's Mrs. Lockwood's car, and she sees a bunch of tomb vampires walking towards her, looking very pissed. They're obviously going after their founder's family revenge. Caroline tries to get out the car to save her, but Bonnie tells her no, it's not safe, and she's like, Bonnie, you've got your ghost boyfriend drama, Elena's got hers, let me go deal with the mother of mine, okay? You've got this. So she gets out the car to go save Mrs. Lockwood. So Jeremy's talking to Anna, telling her that the spell's just gonna break her foothold, but they can still see each other. This doesn't have to be goodbye. She says it doesn't have to be, but it should be. And that Elena was right, she's just holding him back. She apologizes for stealing the necklace, but when she saw the tomb vampires, she just thought that maybe, and she stutters, and Jeremy's like, that maybe you would find your mother? And Anna's like, I don't know where she is. I don't know if she's still lost or if she's found peace or if there's any kind of peace to find. And Jeremy's like, there is peace, Anna, I believe that. So it's just so sad because the way that Anna lost her mother in season 1, that was our whole point of everything, was to try and get her back. And then when she died, it was just so depressing. So all she wanted to do was see her mommy. So Elena goes back to Lexi to tell her they're running out of time, and Lexi says she needs more time to break through to Stefan, and Elena says she can't give it to her because Bonnie has the necklace, they're going to close the door. Lexi then has a realization and says to Stefan, that necklace, it means something to you. You found it during your darkest time, and you said that it represented hope. And Stefan's like, well, it's ironic that it's about to get blown to pieces then. So he's still not budging. While Damon and Mason are walking through the cave, they reach a barrier that Damon can't get through, almost like when vampires can't get into a house without being invited in. And he's like, what are we going to do? And Mason's like, well, I'm going to keep going, okay? Looks like this is the last stop for you, vampire. And Damon's not okay with this, but Mason's like, look, you're just gonna have to trust me. Is that so hard? Which for Damon, we know it is. So Jeremy gets to the abandoned witch house and gives Bonnie the necklace. She just grabs it from him and is not talking to him, rightfully so. She throws the necklace in the fire and starts her spell. Her Grams shows up next to her, holds her hand, and does the spell with her. And this scene is spliced together with the rest of our storylines. So we see from Carol's perspective as she's laying in her car, Caroline beating up all the tomb vampires, and they're about to kill her, but then the tomb vampires just disappear. In the caves again, Mason says he's found something, and Damon asks what it is, but then Mason disappears and his flashlight hits the ground. So now we don't know what he found because he disappeared because of the spell. In the cell, Lexi tells Elena that Stefan is still in there. She just needs to break through. And Elena's like, it's okay, Lexi. I know what to do now. You can be free. And Lexi just like smiles and disappears so she can find peace. Oh, justice for Lexi. Anyway, Anna's wandering through the streets alone crying, and she sees a woman in the distance and realizes it's her mother, Pearl. And they run up to each other and hug, and I'm literally getting chills. It's such a cute reunion and such a good way to wrap up their story, that they found each other and can have peace and that they both don't have to be alone anymore. It's so beautiful. Anyway, back with Bonnie in the abandoned witch house, her Grams is telling her that she's stronger than all of this and she's so proud of her. And then she disappears and a tear rolls down Bonnie's face as her hand remains empty. So now Bonnie has closed the door and all the ghosts are gone. For now. I'm just kidding. Or am I? Who's to say? So Rick shows up to the Lockwood cells and is like to Damon, you didn't have anyone else to call, did you? And Damon says he needs a non-vampire to get into the cave. And other than Elena, Rick's the only one that he trusts. They argue again and Damon's like, if Mason can forgive me for killing him, why can't you? And Rick's like, because I shouldn't have to, Damon. You're my friend. You shouldn't be killing me. Damon then gives him the same BS apology that he gave Mason. Like, sometimes I do things I don't have to do. And Rick's like, really? You're gonna recycle that same apology you gave to Mason? And Damon's like, well, I didn't mean it with him. And they like smirk and smile at each other. So they're besties again. Their friendship is so cute. I love it. It's so dumb. It's also funny when you think about how it originated, because Rick came to Mystic Falls to find Damon and kill him because he turned his wife into a vampire. It's just interesting how relationships develop in this show. Back in the cell, Stefan asks Elena what she's gonna do now, and she's like, I'm gonna go be a sister to Jeremy and a friend to Bonnie. And he's like, it's good that you're giving up because Lexi gave you a glimpse into what the future would be like. But Elena says she hasn't given up. There's still hope, but there's nothing that she can do until he turns his humanity back on. She holds his face and says he can break through this, fight for it, feel something, anything. Otherwise, he's gonna lose her forever because she's not gonna spend the rest of her life loving a ghost. So this is like your last chance, Stefan. But I also really like how Elena took her advice that she gave to Jeremy about loving a ghost. Obviously, that was a lot more literal. This is a lot more metaphorical. But she's right. This type of, the way Stefan is right now is not the person that she fell in love with, so she's not gonna stay around and be in love for the ghost of who he used to be. I just think it's a really impactful scene right there. Back at the witch house, Bonnie has finished her spell, the necklace is destroyed, and she tells Jeremy to just go away, and he says that he owes her an explanation, but Bonnie interrupts him and tells him, Matt let go of his sister, Jeremy, his sister, and you couldn't even let go of Anna. So what you owe me is the respect of not making me listen to you have to explain yourself. Period, because there really is no justifiable explanation for you cheating on Bonnie, Jeremy, so just leave. Anyway, when Bonnie balcony's alone, there's a magical explosion in the fire, and she walks over to it to see that the necklace is sitting in the fire completely intact. So our saga with the necklace is not over yet. So Rick has made it into the caves where Damon is waiting at that barrier he can't get past, and he asks what's in there, and Rick shines his torch, and we see a bunch of creepy cave drawings all over the wall telling some sort of story, and Rick says that he has no idea what it is. Boom, end of the episode. So I really loved this episode. Like I said, it was super nostalgic for season 1 of the Vampire Diaries. We got to see all these characters like Anna, Lexi, Mason, Grams, Pearl, and we get to see their stories wrapped up, which was really nice. And this is kind of like the end sort of the ghost chapter of this season. It does lead more into ghosty stuff later on, but this was like a big part of it. Next, we're really going to be getting a lot into the original's backstory. So let's get into season 3, episode 8, titled Ordinary People. So Elena is walking in the underground secret Lockwood tunnels with Damon and Rick because he's going to take them to the cave. Damon stops at a certain point because he can't move past the vampire barrier, so Elena goes in with Rick where he shows her all of the cave's drawings, and there are a bunch of symbols that they can't translate yet. Elena's really confused by this because she recalls the Lockwoods being part of the founding families who settled in Mystic Falls in 1860, but Rick says that according to these drawings, the werewolves were there a lot longer than that, and he then reads out some names written on a wall which are in runic, a Viking script, and the names are Niklaus, Rebecca, and Elijah. We then cut to a flashback of God knows when, they don't even give us a year, and Rebecca and Klaus are in the caves, and Rebecca's carving in their names into the wall with a knife. Klaus is like, "Father would not be happy if you're wielding a blade," and she's like, "Well then don't tell him, you're the one who always does," and he says, "I can't help it, I'm frightened of him," and Rebecca says, "We all are." Klaus tells Rebecca to then go help Mother tend to the meal, like the whole classic woman belong in the kitchen thing, so she slams the blade into his hand, and he yelps, and she's like, "Oh, don't worry Nick, it's just a little blood," and we see that his cut doesn't heal, so Rebecca and Klaus in this flashback are both still human at this point. One thing to note is when they're talking about how they're frightened of their father, they say that they always stick together as one, always and forever, which we will soon learn is the original family's motto to one another. And this episode is incredibly important because it sets up the original family's backstory, how they were turned into the first vampires ever, of which every other vampire is descended from, and this is so important not only for the season and for the show, but for the Vampire Diaries spin-off show, the original, so please pay attention to, out of any episodes, this one. So back in present day, while looking at the cave drawings, Elena thinks that this is one of Klaus's fakes, like how he faked the Sun and the Moon curse back in season 2, but Rick then points out that he doesn't think it is because there's another name written on the wall, and the name is Michael. And then Damon says, aka Papa Original. So this confirms that the vampire who hunts vampires, who's after Klaus and Rebecca that we saw in the flashback, who's their father that they're afraid of, Michael. I'm wondering if that's why their last name is Michelson, because back in the day, their last name was just like the father's name with son attached to it, like Michael's sons. I don't know. That's my theory. I don't know much about Viking history. This big bad villain who knows how to kill Klaus is his father. Well, we kind of know it isn't because we learned back in season 2 that Klaus is a bastard. Because of his mother's infidelity, Klaus's real father is in fact a werewolf, and that is why he's a hybrid to begin with, but let's not jump too ahead of ourselves. So over in Rick's apartment, he has taken a bunch of photos of the pictures in the cave walls so that he can decipher them and understand the story that they're telling, and this is where these symbols come from, by the way. So we can finally answer that old question. Literally no one asked, but I just kept talking about it because I love this kind of stuff. I think it's cool. Anyway, while Rick's looking at these pictures, Elena's practicing her fighting skills with Damon, who mentions to Rick that Mason's ghost said that whatever is in that cave can be used to kill Klaus. But Damon thinks that the story is just supposed to lead them to Michael, whom they've already lost. Not sure why Damon thinks they've lost Michael at this point. I don't know if it's because Michael fed on Catherine, so he hasn't heard from her since then, but we'll soon figure that out. But Elena still believes that whatever is written on this wall could still lead to the weapon that could kill the infamous unkillable Klaus. But in order to understand these images and decipher them, she's gonna go straight to the source, Rebecca. So we cut to Rebecca at the high school doing some crazy flips to show off to the cheerleaders, and when she sticks the landing, Elena's standing in front of her saying she wants to talk, and Rebecca goes off rambling saying if it's about Stefan not to worry because she's off him till he starts treating her better, but Elena interrupts her by pulling out the pictures from the cave, and Rebecca was too stunned to speak, and Elena's like, I just want to know why you and Klaus have been running from your father for the past 1,000 years. Rebecca doesn't respond and just goes to leave, so Elena says she'll just ask Michael when they wake him. Rebecca calls her bluff saying she doesn't know where he is, and Elena's like, really? Then who's rotting in that old cemetery in Charlotte? Rebecca at this point is scared and tells Elena that if she wakes Michael, they're all doomed. Elena asks why, and Rebecca just says she's got to get back to the girls. And as she's walking, we see the camera fade to a flashback 1,000 years ago, back when Rebecca was human. So we see the original family 1,000 years ago in their Viking village, as usual with the Vampire Diaries. The costuming, set design, it's all on point. We see Klaus and Elijah are jarring, is that the word? Play fighting with swords. And Rebecca calls over to her brother Henrik. So there was another original sibling being introduced to Henrik. She's like, our brothers are fighting again. And we see Klaus cut off Elijah's belt so his pants fall to the ground, and everyone laughs. And then we see Michael walking over with the original mother. Are you guys keeping up? A lot of introductions here. Esther Michael, Mikkelsen, and she's seeing how he's getting infuriated and is like, calm down, Michael. Niklaus means well. But Michael's not happy that Klaus is treating fighting like a game. He then grabs Elijah's blade and starts fighting against Klaus, and Klaus is like trying to calm him down, saying that they were just having fun. And Michael's like, we fight for survival and you fight for fun? He then charges towards Klaus, trips him so he falls on the ground, and points his sword to his throat, calling him a foolish, impulsive little boy. And then he stabs the sword next to Klaus's face. And it's really interesting seeing Klaus actually scared of someone, because so far in the series, he's seemed fearless. Fearless! But of course, Rebecca said to Stefan that no one is truly fearless. So over in Rick's apartment, he's making guesses as to what some of the symbols are, and we see outside that Elena's walking to Rick's apartment while she's on the phone with Damon. Damon's a bit worried about what Rebecca could do to Elena, but Elena reminds him she has no choice, because the only way to free Stefan of his compulsion and get him to turn his humanity back on is if they kill Klaus, because when an original died, their compulsion wears off. And Elena asks Damon how Stefan's doing. We see that Damon is looking at him through the bars of the cell, and he's like, oh, not great. And she's like, well, he's just gonna have to deal with it, and she hangs up the phone. At this point, she's inside of the apartment, and Rick had listened to this conversation, and he questions whether Elena really thinks a 1,000-year-old original vampire will open up to her. And Elena's like, she's a 1,000-year-old vampire who's joined the cheerleading squad. Trust me, Rick, this is a whole different ballgame. And then we see Elena gets a text from Rebecca telling her to come over so they can talk. So we cut to Stefan in the cell talking to Damon, saying if they plan on keeping him locked up there for the next few decades, can they at least skip the routine visits? Damon says he's not a fan of this whole Lexi recovery plan, but Elena thinks this place is going to break Stefan down and make him feel again. Stefan makes a sarcastic jab at Elena, saying they should all listen to her because her plans always work out so well. They both banter about that, and Stefan tries to play mind games with Damon to get rid of him, but Damon just looks at Stefan and pities him, so he breaks him free of his chain, screwing Lexi and Elena's plan because now Stefan is free, and he's going to take him out for the day for some brother bonding. So Elena arrives to the Salvatore house where Rebecca calls out a bunch of girls that she's compelled, and they do like a model catwalk, and they're all wearing a bunch of dresses, and Rebecca's like to Elena, which dress do you think that I should wear to the homecoming dance? It's quite funny to be honest, but Elena says she's not there to help her shop. She wants to know why Rebecca doesn't want her to wake Michael. Rebecca then retaliates and vamp speeds over to one of the models and is about to sink her teeth into her, so Elena quickly chooses a dress and is like, red dress! Rebecca then sends her live compelled mannequins away and goes over to Elena and says, you do not threaten me. You will learn what I allow you to learn. You got it? Which, like, yeah, Elena's being a little bit too overconfident with this like millennium old vampire. I mean, I guess she probably thinks that Rebecca's not going to kill her because then Klaus would kill Rebecca because he needs Elena alive, so maybe that's her leverage, if you so speak. But she's truly like just testing her. So Bonnie arrives over to Rick's apartment with the necklace, the famous necklace that wouldn't die, and it's kind of weird, awkward vibes because obviously Rick is Jeremy's guardian, and he says to Bonnie that Jeremy is an idiot, but he'll learn his lesson eventually, and he knows this because he was once an idiot like Jeremy. So yeah, Bonnie and Jeremy are officially broken up, which kind of fun. No, it's not fun. It's fun because I get to do this. I should have done this with Elena and Stefan, but this string already seems to be fraying, so snip. Oh, there we go. How sad. Well, you F around, you're gonna find out, Jeremy. It's just so sad because I feel like Bonnie doesn't get like a good relationship until season 8. Like the last season, it's so sad, but he really messed up. Anyway, so the reason that Bonnie has brought the necklace over to Rick is because he recognized the design and he puts it over to one of the symbols and realizes that the symbol for the necklace represents the witch. And at that point, he's figured out the symbol for vampire because it's got a sun and fangs, pretty obvious. He's figured out the symbol for werewolves because it's got a full moon and the claws, and then obviously that helped him figure out the hybrid. So now he's got 4 symbols down pat. And on top of this, we now have confirmation from Bonnie's Grams that the necklace is the talisman of the original witch who put the hybrid curse on Klaus. So this is going to lead to a lot of answers for Rick. So Rebecca's up in Stefan's room with Elena, snooping through his things, which Elena's not a fan of. And she asked her to tell her family story because Elijah had told her back in season 2 their father was a wealthy landowner in Eastern Europe. So how did they end up here in what they now know as Mystic Falls? So Rebecca says that her parents had just started a family when a plague struck their homeland and they lost a child to it. This child, by the way, you will only learn about in the original season 2. So there's lore here to develop. So her parents wanted to escape so they could protect their future family from the same fate. Elena asks how they ended up here because this part of the world hadn't even been discovered yet. Rebecca chuckles, saying not from the people in your history books. So that means that the people in the history book were late to discover America because the Vikings in this world had already discovered it. Rebecca goes on saying that her mother knew a witch named Ayana who knew of a mystical land where everybody was healthy, blessed by gifts of speed and strength. So their family came here. So Ayana, just to introduce her, is this witch over here who is confirmed to be part of the Bennett witch line. It gets confirmed later in the season, but we're getting the little bitch No. We're getting the little witch Bennett storyline come through. So obviously we've got Bonnie into her mother, who is that? Into Sheila Bennett, into Emily Bennett, into Ayana. So I really love that we're all linking back. So clearly the Bennett witch line is one of the strongest and oldest ones there is, which makes sense because they're so powerful. But yeah, so Elena realizes that she's talking about werewolves. So Rebecca says that her family lived here in peace with the werewolves for over 20 years, during which time her parents had more children, including her. Rebecca then recalls more as we cut to a flashback with her narration over it. She says once a month on the full moon, her family would retreat to the caves, these so-called Lockwood caves, to be safe from the wolves. Then they'd return home. We see Rebecca with the witch Ayana, and she goes to touch the necklace, the famous necklace, and it burns her hand, and Ayana's like, that is not yours to touch. Rebecca then hears Klaus screaming outside, so she runs out, and we see Klaus holding their brother Henrik, and he's covered in blood. Rebecca's narration explains how Klaus and Henrik had snuck out of the caves one night to watch the men become beasts, which was completely forbidden, and her youngest brother Henrik paid the price. We see Esther coming over to his body, crying, freaking out, talking to Ayana, asking if there's anything that they can do, but Ayana says it's too late. Her son is gone. So the youngest of the original siblings, Henrik, was killed by a werewolf. We then cut to present day where Rebecca says that that was the beginning of the end of her family's peace with the werewolves, and one of the last moments that her family had together as humans. Elena then gets a call from Damon and goes to take it, and when she turns around, we see Rebecca wiping a tear from her face, and he's called Elena to check on her, and we see Damon's walking in the bar with Stefan, who says he's gonna go over and get a drink, and Elena hears Stefan's voice, and naturally she's furious with Damon for letting him out, but he says he's got this and he hangs up the phone. So Damon meets Stefan by the bar and asks what they're drinking. Stefan says he wants something a bit warmer, and a bartender comes over to them, so Damon smiles and compels her to let Stefan drink from her wrist. Some time has passed, and we see that Damon and Stefan are playing a drinking game. Damon asks Stefan how he's handling drinking blood after years on the bunny diet, and he says, well, the bunny diet gave him time to practice, wallow in despair, guilt, and regret his existence, and Damon jokes saying that all the energy he wasted telling Stefan how boring he was, and now he finally agrees. Because obviously back in season 1, Damon was trying really hard to get Stefan to feed on human blood, as was happening in their previous history as well. Stefan tells Damon that he's worse than Elena, thinking that brother bonding will break him down, take him to the edge, and Damon says he happens to like the edge. Stefan's problem is that he always falls over it because he's all or nothing. He can't just be, but then again, who is he to judge? He then passes the bartender's wrist back to Stefan and he feeds. So Stefan's like kind of suspicious of Damon, thinking that this is a trick, that he's not actually happy about him feeding on human blood, being off the bunny diet. He's just trying to get him to go over the edge so that he can like go so far gone that he feels deep regret and pain, so he turns his humanity back on. But Damon, on the other hand, I think is just trying to be like, maybe there's another way. Because he's never been a fan of Stefan completely abstaining from human blood the way that Lexi and Elena want him to, because he doesn't believe it's natural for a vampire. But Stefan's a bloodaholic. He's a ripper. Speaking of Stefan, back in his room, Rebecca's looking at a picture of him and Elena and says she doesn't get them as a couple. And Elena's like, how would you? You know nothing about him. And Rebecca says she knows exactly who he is. He's a vampire. They're a predatory species who don't have time to care about humans and their silly little lives. But Elena claps back and is like, really? Is that why you've got that runway show downstairs? Because you don't care about homecoming? Elena goes to leave and Rebecca's like, you haven't heard the rest of the story. And she's like, and you're not going to tell it to me. You're just looking for somebody to push around. Why don't you go compel yourself a friend? As she's leaving, Rebecca tells Elena that the necklace wasn't Stefan's to give. It belonged to the original witch. Elena confirms the same one who put the hybrid curse on Klaus. And Rebecca says not just that, but the same witch who turned her family into vampires. Okay, so we're finally getting into the story. Oh, I'm so excited. So back in the flashback, Michael is begging the witch Ayana to call upon the spirits before the next full moon, but she doesn't want to because she says it's a crime against nature. The mother Esther says that they've lost too much already and they can't lose any more. The camera pans and we see that Rebecca is hiding behind a wall, eavesdropping on them, and she hears her mother say to Ayana that the spirits can find a way to protect their family. Back in present day, Rebecca walks out down the stairs because she's thirsty for a drink. Elena's confused, saying that vampirism was a way of protection, and Rebecca's like, what else did you think it was? And she's like, a curse. Rebecca says that her parents only sought out a way to keep their children alive, and Elena asks if they're so afraid of the werewolves, why didn't they just leave the village? And Rebecca says because of her father's pride. He didn't want to run and hide. He wanted to fight. He wanted to be superior to the wolves. He wanted to be faster than them, stronger, more agile, stronger senses. So back to the flashback, Michael's talking to Ayana, saying that everything could be heightened and their family could live forever. But Ayana says that the magic he speaks of bears serious consequences. Ayana then tells Esther that this is the making of a plague and she will not have any part of it, so Ayana leaves. Michael then tells Esther that if Ayana won't protect their family, then it's now in her hands. In present day, Elena asks Rebecca how it was in her mother's hands, what could she do? And this is when Rebecca reveals that her mother was also a witch. Elena was confused, so Rebecca dumbs it down for her. The witch of the original family? The original witch? So boom. Oh my god. I love this. I remember the first time I saw this, I was like, hot damn. Okay, so So the original family before they were turned into vampires were a family of witches. And this is how they were turned into vampires, was through dark magic. And it's just so good because like this whole time they've been talking about this villain, the vampire who hunts vampires, which is the original vampire father, Michael. The original witch who put the hybrid curse on Klaus, the one who's trying to kill Elena so he can't make more hybrids. That's the original witch Esther Michelson on the other side. It's so good. And this is why I say season 3 of the Vampire Diaries has the best villains of the show, because not only are the villains the original siblings, the family, right? Klaus, Rebecca, etc. But they also have villains of their own, which are their own parents. It's just like layers upon layers, and it's so good. Not only to mention that it set off one of the most successful spin-offs of a show, so there's that too. Anyway, back to it. Elena asks Rebecca if she's a witch too, and she explains that she's not, because a witch is nature's servant, and a vampire is an abomination. You can't be both at once. Well, anyway, so their mother turned them all into vampires, but she did not do that to herself. She remained a witch. Elena asks how she turned them into vampires, and Rebecca goes on with the story, saying that her mother called upon the sun for life and the ancient white oak tree, one of nature's most eternal objects for immortality. So it's all linking back. We got the daggers, we got the daylight rings, okay? Anyway, the night they turned into vampires, their father gave them wine laced with blood. And can you guess what kind of person the blood belonged to? He then drove his swords through their hearts, and she says he wasn't delicate about it either. Back in the flashback, we see Klaus and Rebecca wake up with a big gash in their chest. They're covered in blood, and they're confused as to what's happened. Then Michael storms in with human bleeding from the neck and tells them that they have to feed if they want to survive. Klaus tries to stop him, so he pushes him back, and he holds the human over to Rebecca and forces her to feed. Rebecca then pulls back, smiling as her fangs come in, and her narration says it was the most euphoric feeling ever. She says the feeling of power was indescribable, but the witch Ayana was right about the consequences. She talks of how the spirits turned on them and nature fought back. For every strength they had, there was a weakness. The sun was now their enemy, and it kept them indoors for weeks until her mother found a solution, the daylight ring. We see in the flashback where Rebecca's walking looking at her daylight ring, but then all the neighbors are hiding from her. Her narration says neighbors that had once let them into their homes could now keep them out. That's the whole invitation vampire thing, right? Oh, it all links together. It's so good. She then touches the flowers at the base of the white oak tree, but they burn her. That's vervain. She says the flowers that grew by the tree that gave us life could now harm us and could prevent others from our compulsion. And the wood itself from the white oak tree that gave them life and immortality could take it away. So her family burned it to the ground. That's where the ash from the dagger and ash came from. As her family is watching the tree burn down, Rebecca's narration says the darkest consequence was there something her parents could have never anticipated. The hunger. Blood had made them reborn, and it was blood that they craved above all else, and they could not control it. We see villagers walking past, and Rebecca following them. She vamp speeds over to them and feeds on them to their death. In present day, she finishes off by saying, and that's how the predatory species was born. I'm sorry, it's so good, it's so good. One thing about me, which you may have noticed thus far, is I like rules. When it comes to world building and mythology, I want it to make sense. I like origin stories, and I eat this kind of shit up. I just love hearing the story about how vampires in this universe were created and how everything links back together. It is such amazing writing, because there's no way that they knew about this from the beginning of the show, but the fact that they were able to tie everything together, the vervain, the sun, the invitation into the home, the compulsion, the way that everything linked together, how every strength had a weakness. It's just amazing. It's so good. And I find it so interesting as well that her parents were trying to perform a spell because they were witches to protect their children, but their intention was not to actually create vampires. That was the dark consequences, the spirits fighting back that Ayana had mentioned. So it was never actually her intention to create vampires. Oh my god. It's just so good. Name a better way of explaining how vampires were made. I'll wait. I would love to know, because so many shows just have them, but they don't explain how they exist to begin with. And it's just so good. I love this episode so much for this. Anyway, I need to stop gushing. It's just so good. I never get over it. Anyway, so back in the bar, Damon then pulls Stefan off of the bartender and compels her to run along. Interesting to see how when Stefan's humanity is off, he's a lot more controlled when it comes to blood feeding, because in the past he would just feed until they died or rip their head off. You know, it's interesting how he has more control when his humanity is off. Almost like him being a ripper and a bloodaholic is tied to his humanity. Anyway, they sit together at the bar, and Stefan's trying to get to the bottom of why Damon went against Elena's wishes by freeing him, and Damon says maybe he wanted to remind Stefan what freedom felt like after Klaus took it away from him. But Stefan says that as long as Klaus is alive, he has to do what he says, and Damon tells him, well, you can sit around and be his little bitch, or you can do something about it. And Stefan's like, what do you want me to do, Damon? He can't be killed. They then get interrupted by a man who says, I can do something about that. Stefan realizes it's Michael, so he's awake after all. It's all linked together, isn't it? In the Salvatore house, Elena asks Rebecca why Michael started hunting Klaus, and Rebecca recalls that when Klaus made his first human kill, it triggered his werewolf curse, and he became their father's biggest shame. And Elena remembers this part of the story when Elijah had told her that that, you know, how about the mother having an affair and Klaus's real father was from a werewolf bloodline, and she kept it a secret from Michael, so Klaus was not actually Michael's son. Rebecca goes on saying that her mother tried to make it right by putting the hybrid curse on Klaus to suppress his werewolf side, and she turned her back on him. But Michael's greatest weakness as a human was his pride, and as a vampire, that was magnified. So after he discovered about Klaus being a hybrid and about how his wife's infidelity, he came home and told her that she had broken his heart, so he tore hers from her chest. As Klaus watched, we see Rebecca standing crying. The village is completely empty because that I mentioned Michael killed everyone in the village. The rest of their family had fled. The tree was burnt down, there was ashes everywhere, and Rebecca says how Klaus stayed behind to help her bury their mother because he knew that she needed to say goodbye. Klaus finishes digging the grave for their mother, and Rebecca tells him that their mother did not hate him, she was just afraid, and she apologizes for their mother turning her back on him and promises that she will never do that. And then Elijah shows up. Rebecca grabs both of their hands and tells them that they stick together as one, always and forever. And it's a really beautiful, powerful moment because their other two siblings who we haven't met yet had fled, and these three really have such a tight bond because after their family was destroyed and took off, they stuck together and were always there for each other, always and forever, of course, unless Klaus was mad at one of them and then he would stick a dagger in them. In present day, Elena rightfully so questions this always and forever motto, considering how Klaus locked Rebecca in a coffin for 90 years, but Rebecca brushes it off by saying they're vampires and their emotions are heightened. She's stubborn, Elijah's moral, and Klaus has no tolerance for those who disappoint him, and over 1,000 years as a family, they've all made that mistake, her several times. Elena questions how Rebecca can still love him after all this, and Rebecca says because he's her brother and she's immortal, so should she spend the rest of her eternity alone? Elena looks at Rebecca with pity, and you can see on her face that she freaks out realizing that she's let her guard down and become vulnerable. She tells Elena that she doesn't know what game she's playing, but she's done playing along, and Elena says she's just looking for one good reason why she shouldn't wake Michael, and Rebecca says she's already given her 1,000, but she'll do it anyway to kill Klaus, and Elena reminds her how Klaus has a hold over her life and a hold over Stefan's life, but Rebecca tells her that she can wake Michael at her own peril, but if she comes after her brother, she will rip her apart, and she gets her temper from her father. Elena then leaves. Okay, so now Rebecca's like, fine, wake Michael. So back at the bar, Michael's questioning Stefan about Klaus's whereabouts, but he can't answer any of the questions because he's been compelled by Klaus, and Damon's like, I really hope that your big plan wasn't a game of 20 questions. Michael then grabs Damon's shoulder and says that he's been a vampire and a vampire hunter for longer than he's been alive, so he'll find Klaus. Damon then babbles on saying, well, you know, he's been running from you for 1,000 years and you haven't found him, and then Michael shoves his hand into Damon's chest cavity and grabs his heart. He holds it, telling Stefan to be careful, one wrong move and he'll rip his brother's heart out. He asks Stefan again to tell him where Klaus is, otherwise Damon dies, and Damon says he can't because Klaus has compelled him and he made him turn off his humanity so he doesn't care. And Michael's like, really? You wouldn't care if your brother died? And he's like, well, okay then, and he's about to pull out Damon's heart, and Stefan stops him and says that he can lure Klaus back to Mystic Falls. So Michael pulls his hand out of Damon's chest cavity, leaving his heart in it, wipes the blood from it, and says, well, there's your loophole. He tells Stefan to lure Klaus back to Mystic Falls so that he can drive a stake through his heart. Fail to do so, and he'll drive it through his. This man is scary. So Elena goes back to the Lockwood Mystery Caves, and Bonnie and Rick are in there. They've been labeling all of the symbols with what they've now discovered, and they're trying to decipher the story. So after hearing Rebecca's story, Elena fills in the rest of the details. There's a part of the story they're trying to decipher with symbols of the original witch, drawing of a heart, and a symbol of a hybrid, and they're all like upside down, and it's very confusing. But Elena realizes what it all means and says, oh my god, Rebecca doesn't know the real story. So then we cut to Elena arriving at the Salvatore house, and she says to Rebecca, how do you know that Michael killed your mother? And she says because Klaus told her and he was there. Elena tells Rebecca that Klaus lied to her and shows her pictures of the cave story of her family. She's explaining how it all worked, and she shows her the final pictures which explain how the original witch was actually killed by the hybrid. So Klaus is actually the one who killed Rebecca's mother. Naturally, Rebecca doesn't want to believe this, but Elena continues saying Esther put the hybrid curse on Klaus. She rejected him. With the werewolf's gene comes aggression and violence, and when he was turned into a vampire, all of that was heightened. Klaus killed their mother, and he lied to Rebecca about their father so he wouldn't lose her. Rebecca then freaks out and says this is all lies from people who knew nothing about her family. She throws the pictures into the fire, and Elena asks, well then why are you getting so mad? She goes on saying how Klaus has a hold on everyone's life, including Rebecca, and has for 1,000 years, and he has to be stopped. Rebecca then grabs Elena, vamp speeds her against the wall, and flashes her fangs in her face and screams at her, tells her to stop, shut your mouth, stop talking. Ah! Elena's really scared, but Rebecca's face just turns from anger to sadness. She drops Elena, drops to the floor, and just starts crying, and it's just so sad. I get chills every time I see this. Rebecca being so close with her brother, always being with him, always and forever, and he had told her this lie this whole time. He was the one who had killed her mother. So Damon and Stefan are walking in the parking lot, and Damon says he wished Stefan didn't take so long to have his emotional breakthrough, but Stefan denies he even had one. Damon taunts him and is like, really? Because you're always saving my life. Careful, brother, your humanity is showing. Stefan tells Damon that he's right. He did remind him of what his freedom was like, and when all of this is said and done, and they kill Klaus, he's free to leave. So he didn't do this for Damon, he did it for himself. Damon says he doesn't believe him, and Stefan asks why he's doing this. Why is everyone trying so hard to save him? And Damon says it's because he's in this mess with Klaus because he he saved his life, and he owes him, and he can't just let him rot in a cell. Stefan then smiles and tells Damon, be careful, brother, your humanity is showing. So Damon punches him, body slams him, and kicks him, and Stefan laughs, bleeding from the mouth as Damon walks away. Y'all, I will never understand this brother relationship. I mean, I understand it, I could just never imagine being in it. The way they struggle so hard showing that they love and care for each other, and the way they laugh or smile when one another beats each other up, I don't get it. So our final scene is at the end of the night in the Gilbert house. Elena's coming out of her bathroom into bed, where Damon is laying waiting for her. She's a bit annoyed that he's there, but he tells her that they got Michael. She asks how, and he says, I don't know, I guess Catherine just came through, and this puts his plan in motion. She gets into bed, and Damon goes on saying that Stefan's an even bigger dick than before, but now he's a dick that's on their side. And he wonders about Michael's weapon because he said it was a stake, so Elena says he must have carved it from the ancient white oak tree before the original family burnt it down. And Damon says after all that's what the wall led them to, but Elena says no, well, the wall also led them to Rebecca possibly being on their side too. He asks what Elena learned from Rebecca, and she says that she learned that she's just a girl who lost her mom too young, who loves blindly and recklessly, even if it consumes her, which Elena can definitely relate to. Elena then looks over at Damon and says that when it's all said and done, there's nothing more important than the bond of family. Damon says that she should tell his brother that, and she tells Damon that she's not mad at him for letting Stefan out. She turns out the light, and it's really cute. They're like facing each other in the dark in bed, and she tells Damon that she thinks that he's going to be the one to save Stefan from himself. It won't be because Stefan loves her, it'll be because he loves his brother. Oh, we're getting emotional. Because at the end of the day, the heart of the story is not necessarily the love triangle between Damon and Stefan, it's the love between these brothers. Anyway, Elena asks Damon if she can tell him the rest of the story tomorrow, and he says yes as she falls asleep and he watches her, which is actually cute, not creepy. And that's the end of this episode. I wouldn't say it's like necessarily a favorite episode of mine, I just maybe one of my favorite like flashback story episodes. I love, like I said, hearing about the original family, how they were turned into vampires, etc, etc. Anyway, now that Michael's in the picture, let's get into the next episode, the mid-season finale for the Vampire Diaries season 3, and our final episode we'll be talking about in this video, episode 9, Homecoming, which has a double meaning. I love this episode. It's really fun. It actually reminds me a lot of season 2, episode 7, the Masquerade Ball, where our gang is trying to fight Catherine. I just love when we get kind of like cutbacks to like their plan and seeing how it goes to plan or it doesn't go to plan. I just love a good plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Okay? Anyway, so our episode opens up in the Salvatore house where Stefan is on the phone to Klaus, who's in some forest in Portland, going on about how he's been finding werewolves and turning them into hybrids. So that's what he's been up to in the past 3 episodes since we last saw him in episode 5, The Reckoning. Anyway, Stefan tells Klaus that his father's dead. Well, not his father exactly, but Michael. And not exactly dead, but daggered. And then we see Stefan look over at Michael lying on the floor, and he is in fact daggered. And Klaus asks what happened. So then we cut back to an hour earlier, and we see Stefan running through the plan with Elena and Damon. And he says that they're going to tell Klaus that Michael tried to grab Elena to lure Klaus out to Mystic Falls. So Stefan and Damon both remained him because it would take both of them to be able to do that. And they found the dagger in his pocket, which he had planned to use on Rebecca. So then Elena used it on him. So this is like their fake scenario, right? To get Klaus to come back. Elena asks what about if Klaus wants to see Michael's body. Michael then walks out saying that Klaus was paranoid, so he'll definitely want to see his body. In which case he will, which will lure him to Mystic Falls so that he can kill him himself with the white oak stake. So Elena was right. He has a stake that he carved from the white oak tree that was used to turn the originals, the only thing that can kill them before they all burnt it down. Damon asks where it is, and Michael says it's in a safe place hidden, ensuring that they won't leave the dagger in him. Back in present day, Klaus on the phone draws on his compulsion with Stefan, and Stefan confirms that he did watch Elena dagger Michael. We see the clip of her doing that. Klaus then asks if he can speak to Rebecca, and Stefan passes the phone to her. She confirms that Michael is daggered and he's finally out of their lives for good, and she misses him. She wants him to come home, and he says he will be home soon and hangs up the phone. So far the plan is all going well, and Klaus is convinced, and Elena pulls the dagger out of Michael. So it's the next morning, and Rebecca is painting her toenails in front of her father's body, waiting for him to wake up, and he's shocked to see her because it's his first time seeing her, and she tells him to spare any fatherly nonsense he's thinking of saying because nothing he says matters to her. He asks Rebecca where the dagger is, and she says Elena has it so he can forget about his plan to use it on her. Michael says that he was never after Rebecca, just Klaus, and Rebecca says Klaus was her brother, so if he was after him, he was after her. He claps back and says Klaus blinded her and killed her mother, and she says Klaus will pay for that with his life. But Klaus was not born a monster, none of them were. They became one when Michael and Esther turned them into vampires, and Klaus isn't the one who destroyed their family, Michael is. I mean, fair enough, girl, speak your truth. So over at the Gilbert house, Elena's going through her closet saying she has nothing to wear to the homecoming dance, and Bonnie's like, well, just don't go then, and Elena's like, Caroline will kill us if we don't, and Bonnie's like, well, she actually has a date. Elena then goes to sit on the bed and is like asking Bonnie how she's doing after after the whole Jeremy situation. And Bonnie's like, I'm fine. And Elena's like, Bonnie, you can talk to me about it. I'm mad at him too. And Bonnie's like, yeah, but you're mad at him in a way that he's your little brother. You can't really understand how mad I am, Elena. So no, I can't talk to you about it, which is true. It's a really sticky situation. Her little brother cheated on her best friend. Messy boots galore. Not to mention it was with his ghost lover. Back at the Salvatore house, Elena and Damon are in Damon's bathroom preparing all of their weapons for the night, their grenades and whatnot, because this is all happening at the homecoming dance, which we know their track record with school dances. Elena's feeling really nervous about Rebecca's involvement because she could turn on them, because what Bonnie said to her really made her think that Klaus is Rebecca's brother, so no matter how much she's mad at him right now, he's still her family. In general, Elena just feels like there's so many things that could go wrong with this plan because there's so many people involved, but Damon says he's forming a secret contingency plan, and Elena asks him what it is, and he's like, well then it wouldn't be a secret then. They then hear footsteps approaching, and it's Stefan, so Damon gets all hush. He's there because he wants to borrow a tie from Damon, and Damon and Elena are like, you know, you don't actually have to come to this thing, and Stefan reminds them that he's been compelled by Klaus to protect Elena, and if he looks at her track record with school dances, she's gonna need it. So true. I mean, think about all the bad stuff that have happened at school dances. The 50s dance in season 1, where that tomb vampire was stalking Elena. The 60s dance in season 2, where Klaus was possessing Rick's body and tried to kill Bonnie. So yeah, not a good track record. Stefan also looks at their weapons and asks if they have a better plan than wolfsbane grenades, and Damon says the less you know about it, brother, the better. But Stefan reminds them that he's relying on them to gain his freedom from Klaus. Elena says that Stefan's the one that should be worried, because if Klaus asks one wrong question, their whole plan falls apart. And Stefan's like, you do have a reason to be concerned, but if I think about all of the plans that have failed in the past, it's usually because someone let their humanity get in the way, so I don't think that I'm the one to worry about. So he's basically implying that the plan's gonna fall apart because of Elena's humanity. Oh, well... Anyway, so over at the Mystic Falls High School parking lot, there's a bunch of students like painting things and making things for the dance, and Caroline is of course running the homecoming committee, as she does everything. She is Miss Mystic Falls after all, and she's painting a hippie truck talking to Tyler, who asks if they can go grab a bite, and Caroline's like, oh yeah, I have a thermos of blood in my bag, and he's like, no, I want a real bite. And he says Rebecca knows some people who like to be fed on, so they don't even have to compel them, and Caroline's like, I just got your mother to stop hating me. I don't exactly want her to walk in on me in some weird vampire orgy. She's like, secondly, you need to stop hanging out with Rebecca, the evil blood slut. Her words. He's like, okay, but you need to keep the claws in tonight. And she asks who Rebecca's even going to be going with, and he's like, Matt said that he would take her. And she's like, really, you're going to let our innocent human friend Matt go to the dance with the evil blood slut? And he's like, chill, Matt's on Ravane, he's a guy, and Rebecca's hot. Don't ever think this. He keeps calling Rebecca hot in front of his girlfriend. Caroline thinks this is Tyler's Cirebon to Klaus speaking, and he's like, I'm here in the middle of the day painting this truck with you. If anything, I'm sorry to you. And he just laughs it off. Back at the Salvatore house, Elena walks into Stefan's room where she sees Rebecca in her red dress, and Rebecca says she's just getting a head start for the homecoming dance. She shares that she's never been to a high school dance before because she was always on the run. She changes the subject, asking if Damon and her father have everything ready for the plan tonight. Elena confirms they do, and Rebecca's like, okay, that's fine, don't tell me anymore. I just want to go to the dance and leave the rest to Michael. Elena thanks her for helping them lure Klaus back to town, and Rebecca warns her about Michael, saying that he is a bad person and he can't be trusted, and that no one in her family can. She's getting emotional, and it's a really beautiful scene to see Rebecca start to be vulnerable with Elena, because we haven't really seen that before. It's a really soft side to her. And Elena asks if she's okay, and Rebecca says she spent her whole life hating and loving her brother with equal measure. She just never thought she'd be part of taking his life away. She wipes her tears in the mirror and doesn't want to ruin her makeup, and asks Elena how she looks. Elena says she looks beautiful, but she's just missing one thing. She then pulls out her necklace, which was originally her mother's necklace, and Rebecca's like, my mother's necklace. And Elena's like, you should have it. And Rebecca turns around and Elena's like, can I, put it on? So she goes to put the necklace on Rebecca. Rebecca's smiling. It's a really sweet moment. But then Elena drives a dagger through Rebecca's back. So she falls to the ground, going all grey and veiny, putting her into an original slumber. And Elena looks really emotional and says, I'm really sorry. I just can't leave anything to chance either. So that's what I'm saying. It was a really beautiful scene, but then Elena, she did what she had to do, It's just really sad because, way to knock a girl when she's down and literally stab her in the back. Anyway, some time's passed and Damon's in the room covering up Rebecca's body, and he's like, damn, in the back, that's harsh. And Elena's like, don't, Damon, I already feel awful about this. And she's like, but Rebecca was never going to be on our side. And Damon's like, I'm not being judgy. It's very Catherine of you. And she's like, not a way to make me feel better. And Elena's getting really insecure, saying that Stefan's right. Somebody's going to get in the way in this plan because of the humanity, and it's most likely going to be me. I feel bad, Damon. Damon reassures Elena that she can do this, and she asks if he trusts Michael, and he says no. She asks if he trusts Stefan, he says no. And he says he has another plan, but Elena's not going to like it. She asks why, and he says because when this is all said and done, he doesn't want Elena to be any part of it. And he asks if she trusts him, and she says she does. So he's like, well, then you have nothing to worry about. And I really like how the writers leave us in the dark. I think you have two options when it comes to characters going through with a plan. You either know about the plan ahead to see how it goes, or if it doesn't go well, or you're kind of left in the dark. arc, I think it's fun to switch it up. It's important to know which point you should be at, because I think in the Masquerade episode we knew about the plan and then we got to see it not work out. This time around there are so many parts of the plan that we don't know that when you see it all like come to a crescendo, it's really exciting. So it's nighttime now at the high school and Caroline is freaking out because the gym at the school has completely flooded, and she's on the phone to Elena, and Elena's like, does that mean I don't have to go anymore? And Caroline's like, no, you have to. Tyler's moving the party to his place, okay? So Elena says she's gonna come. She hangs up and she hears a knock at the door, and it's Matt in a suit with a corsage ready to pick up Rebecca. And Elena's like, oh, slight change. How would you feel about a backup date? So Caroline arrives with Bonnie to Tyler's house where there are like a ton of people everywhere, the mansion, the Lockwood mansion. And Bonnie's like, who are all of these people? And Caroline's like, I can't believe you threw a better party than me this quick. So she goes to leave to find Tyler. And outside in the crowd where there's like a live band, it's crazy. Stefan bumps into Tyler and he's like, oh, it's a nice party. And Tyler's like, well, I'm just doing what Klaus wants. And Stefan's like, what do you mean? And he's like, this isn't a party, it's a wake. So this is no longer like a homecoming. It's Klaus's wake for his father. So I'm guessing he had something to do behind the flood at the gym at the school to get it moved over to Tyler's house. And why did Tyler do exactly as he asked? Sire bond. Anyway, on stage when the band finishes their song, Klaus comes to the mic and is like, thank you everyone for being here to celebrate with me. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming. So yeah, that's kind of like the double meaning. It's homecoming because it's a homecoming dance, but it's homecoming because Klaus is coming home. I'm coming home, so tell the world that I'm coming home. Anyway, then Elena and Matt both arrive to the party, and he's like, wow, this is kind of weird, us being together, because remember, they're exes. Texas to my exes. Stop. So the tension is kind of brewing, and then Elena sees Caroline coming, so she tells Matt, don't say anything, she doesn't know anything. So I guess that implies that Matt is like kind of part of this plan, which why? He's useless. So Caroline goes up to them, tells him that Klaus is there, and pissed off that Tyler let him through this party. She's really annoyed and is like, wow, you guys aren't surprised. And Elena's like, I've learned not to be surprised by anything Klaus does. Elena then leaves to find Bonnie, and then Caroline's like to Matt, oh, I thought you were supposed to be here with Rebecca. And they're like, oh, plans change. So I'm not sure why out of everyone they chose to keep Caroline in the dark. Seems a bit unfair. She's really useful. I mean, she was part of the Masquerade plan and she nailed that. I digress. So outside, Stefan finds Klaus, who says that he's been planning his father's funeral for 1,000 years. And Stefan asks if that means that he'll stop running now. And Klaus says when he's confirmed that Michael's gone, he can finally reunite his family. And Stefan's like, oh, you mean your family that you caught around in coffins? And Klaus is like, none of that matters now. Bygones will be bygones. Really? You don't think your family's gonna be pissed that you dug at them and kept them in coffins like they're luggage? Anyway, some girls walk past and Klaus was like, I see the homecoming queen is still amongst the living, which leads me to believe that Rebecca's not here. Where is she? And Stefan's like, oh, I don't know. And Klaus compels him and is like, Stefan, if there's anything weird going on, you need to tell me now. Remember, you're compelled. And Stefan's like, I don't know anything, because he doesn't know where Rebecca is. Our gang has kept him in the dark because of his compulsion. Klaus then tells Stefan to bring his father to him, and he asks what's in it for him. Maybe he could get his freedom from Klaus's compulsion. And Klaus says once Michael is dead and he has his weapon, he's happy to give Stefan his freedom back. So back at the Salvatore house, Damon is pouring himself a glass of blood when Michael shows up, and Damon says he would offer him a drink, but Catherine tells him that he's more of a vampires on the rocks kind of guy. And Michael's like, well, technically you could still offer. And Damon's like, why feed on vampire blood? And Michael says that he had a hand in creating vampires, which was never his intention. And he's not going to feed off of the innocent, so instead he feeds off of the predator. So he's basically drinking secondhand blood. Anyway, then Stefan shows up telling them that Klaus wants to see Michael's body, and he asks what the plan is, and Damon says they have one, Stefan's just not part of it. Michael then vamp speeds behind Stefan and feeds on him until he passes out. And him and Damon leave, leaving Stefan's body behind. Back at the homecoming dance, Tyler is telling Klaus that his mom would not be happy about all these people here, and Klaus is like, well, that's why I've compelled her to go to church and pray for all of your friends. Tyler's like, what? And Klaus tells Tyler to look around, and he points out all of his friends, and he's like, I've got some of my own friends here. Tyler looks around at all these people staring at Klaus looking very serious, and he's like, are all those people hybrids? And Klaus is like, yes, I turned that person when I was in Portland, this person in this city, this person, this person. So he brought all of his hybrids that he turned while he was away to come and be part of his army. And he's like, so why don't you go warn your friends that I've got hybrids like you who are assigned to do whatever I say, who will not hesitate to retaliate if anyone comes for me. So Tyler has taken Caroline into his bedroom and tells him that whatever they're planning with Klaus, he's onto them. And Caroline's like, what are you talking about? He doesn't buy anything and thinks that she's lying, and she's really pissed, saying, I don't actually know anything, but if I did, I wouldn't tell you because you're side to Klaus, so you would just tell him anyway. She goes to leave, and then Tyler sticks a vein injection into her neck until she passes out. So Elena's watching the band when Klaus comes up to her and makes small talk and thanks her for Michael's demise, and she's like, well, he came for me, I didn't have any choice. She's really nervous, and Klaus asks why, and she's like, I'm not nervous, I just don't like you. And he tells Elena that people have been coming after him for 1,000 years, so they can all give it their best shot, but they won't succeed. So he knows something's up, but he's confident he'll survive. At the front of the Lockwood house, Damon shows up where Hybrid's like, you're not invited. And Damon's like, here's my invitation. And he rips out his heart and he's like, hybrids. So Tyler has brought Matt inside of his room where he sees Caroline on the floor and asks what's going on. And he says she'll be fine. He just needs him to get her out of here because something is going on with Klaus and he can't protect her. And Matt asks what he means, and he says he doesn't know why, he can't explain it, but he just knows that he has to do whatever Klaus says and he has to protect him against anyone. He can't fight it, he can't explain it, he just has to obey. So that's the sire bond. You're finally admitting that you have a problem, Tyler? So Matt picks up Caroline and tells him that he just needs to get her out of here, which once again, why would you trust Matt to do that? As Tyler's walking downstairs, Damon grabs him and brings him into his dad's old office so they can speak in private. Tyler tells Damon that whatever they're planning, Klaus is 2 steps ahead of him. Damon grabs Tyler and they start fighting, and Tyler tries to bite him, so Damon's about to stake him, but then the stake gets flown out of his hand. Bonnie shows up and magically fries both of their brains. And Damon's like to Bonnie, you weren't supposed to witch fry my head. And she's like, and you weren't supposed to kill Tyler. He then picks up the stake that he was going to use on Tyler, and it looks like a very interesting stake. And Bonnie's like, oh my god, is that the... And Damon's like, shh. And she's like, is that the white oat stake? Why do you have it? And Damon's like, because I'm the only one who can get into the house. Because remember, he's previously been invited in, but obviously Michael has not. So Klaus is playing beer pong when he gets interrupted by one of his hybrids, saying that he has a visitor here that goes by the name of Michael. Klaus's entire face changes and he's like, okay, well, we better not keep him waiting. And he tells his hybrids to take everyone out back. So Klaus goes to the front door where Michael is waiting, and Klaus tells him that his hybrids will tear him limb from limb. And Klaus feels very confident about his army. Michael taunts him, saying that he hasn't changed, still hiding behind his playthings. But he forgets, they may be part werewolf inside to Klaus, but they're also part vampire, which means that they can be compelled. And they all walk closer to Michael, shift their heads towards Klaus, and Klaus realizes that Michael has compelled all of his hybrids to defend him instead of Klaus, which seems like such a weird loophole. You would think that sire bond would trump original vampire compulsion, but I digress. One of the hybrids then pulls Elena out, and Michael grabs her and puts a knife to her back. He tells Klaus to face him, otherwise Elena will die and he can forget about making any more hybrids. Klaus says that he doesn't need any more hybrids, he just needs to be rid of Michael. Michael starts taunting Klaus, calling him boy, like how he did in the flashbacks, saying that no one cares about him, and those who do are the ones whose loyalty he forces. Klaus calls Michael's bluff about killing Elena again. There's a bit more back and forth, but ultimately Michael stabs Elena in the back and she falls to the ground choking on her blood, and Klaus was like, no, because he can't make any more hybrids. Damon then vamp speeds out of nowhere, pins Klaus to the ground. He's got the stake in the air. Klaus is trying to push back so he doesn't get staked by the white oak. And Damon does end up getting the stake in Klaus, but in the kerfuffle he misses his heart. Elena then gets up, she's not dead, and that's when Michael realizes, damn, it's Catherine. So that whole time it was Catherine, not Elena. That was the secret part of the plan. Catherine then turns around and pulls these clips off of 2 grenades, a wolfsbane grenade and a vervain grenade, and she throws it at the hybrids like kaboom, and then she blows them up and disappears. God, I love her attitude. It's just such a slay. But then in a shocking turn of events, Stefan shows up, pushes Damon off of Klaus, and Damon loses hold of the stake and it's on the floor. He's pinning Damon down, and Klaus grabs the stake, runs outside, and jams the stake into Michael's heart. He falls to the ground screaming as his body burns to a crisp. Oh my god, this plan, it's too much. It's all going to shit. So now Michael is dead and Klaus is still alive. The stake is gone because it burned with Michael's body. That was the only weapon that they had to use against the original vampire. Ooh. Inside, Damon asks Stefan why the hell he did that, and Klaus looks at Stefan and says, to earn his freedom. Damon then disappears, and Klaus thanks his friend Stefan and compels him, saying that he no longer has to do what he says. He's free. And Klaus disappears as well. So Stefan intercepted their plan so that Klaus could survive so he could get his freedom, but if he died, then he would have got his freedom anyway. So it makes you wonder, why did he do that? Well, we'll learn that in a second. But yeah, the whole plan went to shit. So over at Caroline's house, she wakes up in bed and Tyler apologizes for everything. He just says he was trying to protect her, and she asks how she's supposed to be with him when he's sired to Klaus and does everything that he says. And Tyler says there's nothing he can do because Klaus can't be killed, and this is just the way that things are now, but he's fixed. He's okay with it. He no longer has to turn into a wolf. And if being sired to Klaus is the price he has to pay to escape that pain, then that's what he'll do. But Caroline's like, you don't actually have control over yourself, and he says that he never did before. The full moon controlled him. And he tells Caroline that after everything that they've been through together, could she please just not turn her back on him now? But Caroline just looks at him, speechless, and he can tell by the look on her face, and she's like, oh, and then he leaves. So Caroline obviously can't deal with Tyler being sired to Klaus for obvious reasons, and Tyler feels like he can't do anything about it. So ergo, these two have broken up. I'm really enjoying the scissors. This is like a fun new addition. I feel like one of those people like at a ribbon ceremony. Back at the Salvatore house, Damon is fuming, drinking bourbon, and Elena asks him how this happened. He says they thought of everything. Catherine getting involved so Elena could stay out of it, Klaus having hybrids, Michael turning on them. Elena says she doesn't understand because she thought Stefan wanted Klaus dead more than anything. And that's what they were counting on. Damon's freaking out, saying this all could have been over. He throws his drink into the fire, having an adult vampire tantrum. Elena holds Damon's face and calms him down, saying that they will survive this because they always do. And Damon's like, Elena, you know we're never getting Stefan back. And she looks Damon in the eyes and says, says, then we'll let him go. So now she's like, we've tried everything, but like her feelings for Damon, they're growing stronger and stronger. And she's like, if we have to let Stefan go, then that's what we have to do, Damon. But I don't want to see you lose yourself over this. Oh God, I am becoming more of a Delena guy every day. I'm still a Delena guy. Like I'm such a Stefussy guy. Like I just love Stefan. So that maybe that's what makes me lean more towards Delena. But these Delena scenes between these two, scrumptious. Anyway, this cute moment is interrupted when Damon gets a call from Catherine, who's driving, saying she just wanted to say goodbye. It was a good plan, Damon, but she doesn't know what else to say. And she's going back into hiding, trying to put a million miles between her and Klaus. And Damon's like, take care of yourself, Catherine. And they hang up. So they're in a good place, kind of. So that's nice. But when Catherine hangs up the phone, we see that Stefan's in the car with her. And she's like, Damon doesn't know where it all went wrong. And Stefan's like, and he doesn't need to know. Which then takes us back to a flashback in the Salvatore house earlier that night when Catherine wakes Stefan up from when Michael had fed on him and he passed out. She gives him a bunch of blood bags and tells him to get his strength back. We then cut to a flashback earlier than that when Elena, who we now know is Catherine, was talking to Klaus, and we get to see a bit more of their conversation. That if they succeeded with their plan of killing Klaus, he's already ensured that his hybrids will take Damon along with him, because even in death, they have to follow their master's orders. Back in the flashback in the Salvatore house, Stefan has finished his blood bag, and Catherine clues him in about Klaus trying to take Damon out, and Catherine's like, so you could either pull the plan, but they'll all face the wrath of Michael and end up dead. And Catherine's like, look, I know you've turned off your humanity, but there's only one solution, and that's to care, Stefan. Care enough to save Damon's life, because I'm going back to that party and seeing this plan through so that Klaus could die. But if he does, then Damon will die too. Your brother will die, Stefan, unless you do something about it. So this is really sweet because Catherine like acts like she doesn't care, but she did this knowing that she could have finally been free of Klaus after running from him for so long just to save Damon's life. Stefan shares the same sentiment, but Catherine says that she wasn't trying to save Damon's life, she was trying to save Stefan's, because remember, she's still in love with him, and she's like, I wanted to save your humanity, Stefan. Let's just say I like the old you better. Stefan's not buying this, saying that Catherine doesn't care about anyone but herself, and she's like, you can keep saying that, but we both know that that's not true. She's like, I loved you, Stefan, and Damon too. So, past tense, Catherine, you don't still love Stefan? She goes on saying that humanity is a vampire's greatest weakness. No matter how hard you try to turn it off, it just keeps trying to fight its way back in. And sometimes she lets it. Stefan says he can't let it all back in. It'll be too painful after everything he's done, which to me shows that there's an inkling of him already letting it back in if you are scared to turn it back on. You know what I mean? Catherine says that Stefan may not want to turn on his humanity, but if he doesn't, he won't be able to do what she needs him to do, which is to get mad. And then it cuts. So you're like, really, Catherine, what do you need him to do? Why does he need to get mad? Well, our final scene for this episode, we see Rebecca's body lying in the Salvatore dungeon, her phone's ringing, and then we see Klaus in a parking lot like, Rebecca, daddy's dead. Where are you? Time to celebrate. Reunite with the family. And then he gets a call from Stefan to thank him for his freedom, and Klaus is like, well, I am a man of my word. Stefan's like, the problem is, it came at too high of a price, and he's like, you took everything from me. And Klaus is like, let bygones be bygones. Resentment gets old. He then opens up a door to a truck, and Stefan on the phone is like, you know what never gets old, Klaus? Revenge. Klaus looks around as this truck is empty, and Stefan's like, what's the matter, Klaus? Missing something? The camera pans out, and we see Stefan in some mysterious location with all of Klaus's coffins, the coffins of his original family. He stole his family. This is crazy. I can't. Klaus was pissed, saying to Stefan he will kill him and everyone he's ever met. And Stefan says if he does that, he will never see his family again. And he says, I wonder, Klaus, as someone who's always been one step ahead for 1,000 years, were you prepared for this? And he hangs up. Boom! Boom! Clap the sound of my heart. The beat goes on and on and on and on. Yeah. This is so like, I don't even think I could say the C-U-N-T word, but like, this is so good. Like, so good. Like, this is so good. Like, Catherine telling him to get mad, like the perfect revenge. All of this, killing Michael, Klaus carting around his family in coffins, treating them like puppets, only bringing them back to life when he could on his terms. He's always one step ahead of everyone, but he didn't realize that Stefan was gonna steal his family. Boom! It's just so good. It's so good. Like, anyway, so that is the end of episode 9. It is the mid-season finale for season 3, and also the last episode we'll be talking about in this chapter. We obviously still have 3 more chapters to go. Like I said, there'll be a little break just so I can post a few other videos. Then we'll be coming back with the next chapter, chapter 3, Revenge, Repercussions, and Reunions, which covers episodes 10 to 13. But this chapter obviously answered a lot of questions about the ghosts. We got some more insights on the other side. We figured out who the original witch is and how she's able to be doing what she's doing, how she pushed through the door. We got to meet Michael, learn about the original's backstory. Michael is now dead and out of the picture, but what's that original witch up to? And Stefan stealing Klaus's coffins. We know stuff's gonna go down there. So I'm so excited for the next video. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment, and please share the video with a friend. I work really hard on these videos, so I would really appreciate your support. Rewatch it if you want to fall asleep if my voice is not too annoying. Make sure you're subscribed and turn on the bell so you don't miss my next video. Of course, thank you to Keeps for sponsoring this video. Check out the link in my description to get that discount, and also check out my Patreon if you would like to get more bonus Vampire Diaries content in between these YouTube videos. Link is in the description. Lots of good bonus content. content there. And yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I have to say in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next one. And as always, I hope that you have a great day or night, wherever in the world. Bye!